Douluo, my martial spirit is a system. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Controlling the Heart, Controlling the Strength, and Controlling the Soul. 3 people collab. Cough cough cough. Jifei's gaze was fixed on Tang Heo, and he had some urgent desire in his heart that the invalidation of his soul power must be resolved, otherwise, he didn't know what kind of unpredictable consequences would be caused to his future cultivation. At the same time, Jifei also wanted to know what kind of incredible martial soul he had created, and he actually swallowed his system book martial soul directly, and according to his rough exploration now, his system book Wuhan seemed to have really dissipated and disappeared, and lost contact with himself forever. This is the most unpredictable. After all, for Jifei, the martial soul of the system book comes from fantasy, imagination, and also from his longing for the future path of soul master cultivation. Little San, tell me, when you raise the forging hammer and hit it, where is the protruding place that requires force? Xiao Fei, come and tell me, when you run your soul power, where does the most prominent reduction and invalidation force gather? Tang San quickly replied, is it the waist? Dad? Although Tang San didn't really understand the knowledge about soul power that Tang Heo himself said, but he was serious about blacksmithing. Jifei fell into deep thought. He couldn't help mobilizing his soul power slightly, and he could clearly feel fish-like breaths in his body continuously emanating from his meridians. This is the soul power. This is the soul power condensed by oneself. Jifei can distinguish it very quickly. He looked at his right hand, and the 2 black and white lines suddenly appeared. Jifei was overjoyed. This was the sign of the manifestation of the soul power, and the next step was to condense the martial soul. But at the next moment, a sudden change occurred, and Jifei could only feel a layer of waves suddenly stirred up in the depths of his mind, and a very heavy feeling was suddenly released, but in an instant, a terrifying aura instantly merged into Jifei's body. In the meridians of Fei's body, the soul power that had been gathered disappeared in an instant. Jifei was shocked. He knew. He immediately raised his head to stare at Tang Heo, and gave his answer, Uncle Tang, I know. It turned out to be the brain. Tang Heo heard that Jifei's answer was not correct or wrong, and he did not comment on Tang San's answer, but continued to ask questions. What's a brain? Tang Heo looked at Jifei, and at the same time Tang San. The deadliest place in the human body. One of the most vulnerable places in the human body. Tang Heo was non-committal. Then let me ask again, how many hearts do you have? How many brains? How many hearts? How many brains? Jifei was stunned. This sounded weird. In all fairness, Jifei did know that Tang Heo would say that a person has 3 hearts and 2 are on the calf, but doesn't it seem a bit joking if you ask how many heads? Can you live without a heart? Can you live without a head? Can one more head survive? Of course there is only one father. Tang San will naturally answer 1. This answer is definitely the first that anyone will think of. This is the most common knowledge, okay? Hearing this, Tang Heo shook his head. Obviously this was not the answer he wanted. Xiao Fei, tell me. Jifei thought for a while, as if he had been entangled in common sense cognition. After all, this was not the world he lived in his previous life. I don't know how many hearts I have, but I know that a person can have many heads. Hearing Jifei's words, Tang San was the first to be dumbfounded. He looked at Jifei and said slowly, Brother Ji, you don't have a fever, do you? Of course people only have 1 heart, but what do you mean by having so many heads? Look at us, aren't we all one? Jifei shook his head, you can't say that. Jifei looked up at Tang Heo, and Tang Heo's eyes seemed to be signaling Jifei to continue talking. Straightening his expression, Jifei thought to himself that he was going to start talking about something that he probably didn't even understand. Anyway, the one who is in a daze is the most powerful. As Uncle Tang asked, we can analyze the question of how many hearts and heads a person has. Since it was Uncle Tang who asked the question, he naturally wouldn't ask such a superficial question. So my answer is, there's no problem with many heads. And as I said, I won't comment on a person's heart for the time being, but naturally there is not only one brain, because every inch of muscle and every inch of mind of every person can be transformed into a brain. And the main function of the brain is what? Obviously, a person's central mechanism is also used to adjust the existence of the body, so this has to take into account the real scope of thinking. It is precisely because of this that I say that people have many brains. As long as they are good at thinking, then anything can evolve into a brain. Although it cannot completely replace the role of that exclusive brain, it can also be differentiated. Tang San thought subconsciously, as if Fei's words had opened a new door for him, and a steady stream of knowledge washed out like a flood. Tang Heo on the side also nodded. Although he didn't comment, on the surface, it seemed that he gave Fei's words a pertinent look. Do you know what I mean by asking you 2 questions? Tang Heo said, looking at Fei and Tang San. The heart is the source of strength. The brain is the center of soul power control. Tang San and Fei replied in unison. At this moment they both seem to be connected to what they need to learn. What Fei needs to learn is undoubtedly how to eliminate the nullification of soul power, and the source of the nullification of soul power is now confirmed to be released from the brain, or it can be said to be the second martial arts of Douluo. It was released from the soul, so Tang Heo connected it to the brain and let Fei think about it by himself. Tang San didn't have that magic spell to nullify soul power, so he originally wanted to learn the so-called blacksmithing method, and just as Tang Heo asked, the source of a person's power naturally comes from the heart, precisely because only the bursting power of the heart can drive a person's strength and action. Well, yes, both of you have good understanding, but you two still haven't given me the correct answer. I can tell you that a person has 3 hearts, a fixed brain and a virtual brain. End of this chapter. Chapter 27, controlling the heart, controlling the strength, and controlling the soul. 3 people collab. 3 hearts? Tang San was dumbfounded. A fixed brain, and a virtual brain? Fei was surprised. Virtual? Are you sure it's virtual? Fei took a deep breath. What a familiar modern term. Modern is indeed a virtual existence, but isn't it a bit far-fetched to put this sentence on Wuhan? Tang Heo nodded. Let's talk about the so-called 3 hearts first. With that said, Tang Heo picked up the hammer on the side, pointed at Tang San's 2 cards with the handle of the hammer, and then slowly moved to connect with the heart on the chest. A heart naturally controls the whole body, the main heart of power, and what I would say is that the rest, located in the lower legs, also holds power in the heart of one's actions. Zio-san, have you thought about this? You should have felt it more or less when you forged on. The main heart in your body can completely drive your 2 arms to continuously swing the forging hammer to forge, and the lower body needs to use the 2 cards as the most leverage point to release the peak strength. What you said at the beginning can be regarded as the role of balance. This so-called balance means that when your legs and chest are leading the force together, you can penetrate this force through your waist. Only in this way can you gather the power of the 3 together and resonate. Tang San looked at Tang Heo, nodded, half understood, looked at his legs, and began to recall in his mind how he was when forging on. He always felt the source of his strength through Zuanshinkang's power. This is an important point for him to be ahead of others, even for ordinary blacksmithing. Unlike Fei, Tang San strikes iron very fast, and his adaptability to new things is completely ahead of others. Even Fei is no exception at all. Fei fully admits this point, and is completely willing to bow down to the disadvantage. From the forging process, when he first started to learn blacksmithing, and during this period of time, it can be seen that Fei does not have Tang San's physique. There is also the subtle power of Zuanshan Kung Fu to improve. Fei is learning to forge iron is entirely based on the hard work in his bones and his obsession with never giving up. Perhaps in other people's eyes, it's nothing more than blacksmithing, but in Fei's view, it's completely different. Blacksmithing can not only hone one's physique and strength control, but also exercise one's willpower. In his previous life, Fei was a chicken skeleton type of person. Not only was his will unsteady, but his body was also unbelievably weak. To be honest, when he was in his teens, his wrists were not as thick as a 2 or 3 chubby little dolls are thicker. In this world, there are no good men and women, but there is no peace if you don't hit me, and I will designate you not to hit you. Just like some people who have become conspiratorial step by step, only by controlling such power can they speak selectively, which is the fact. Tang Heo then looked at Ji-Fei. Now let me tell you what a fixed brain is, and what I call a virtual brain. Ji-Fei nodded, feeling a little impatient in his heart, although it seemed that these things had nothing to do with how he controlled the invalidation of his soul power. But Ji-Fei also had to learn and control. Since there was no omnipotence, then learn to control all the knowledge by yourself to gradually make up for your own deficiencies. Tang Heo pointed to his drowsy head. This is undoubtedly the fixed brain I mentioned, controlling a person's thoughts, emotions, and actions. And what I want to tell you is that the so-called virtual brain is also something you must control. To put it unrealistically, maybe when you really know how to control the virtual brain, you can completely avoid being psychic. It is controlled by force nullification. Before Ji-Fei could react, Tang Heo continued to say in a deep voice, this virtual brain is the martial soul. Wuhan? Why is Wuhan also called a virtual brain? Ji-Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. He seemed to have glimpsed something incredible. The so-called virtual brain with uncertain definite number means that a martial soul has only 2 brains, and twin martial arts like him and Tang San does the soul then represent having 3 brains? Don't worry, listen to me tell you slowly. Your situation is different from ordinary soul masters, so even if your innate soul power reaches this level, I won't be surprised for too long, and you his twin martial souls are not quite the same. Different twin spirits? Ji-Fei murmured. Wuhan, as the name suggests, is a soul body with soul power attached. Of course, Wuhan can also be regarded as a kind of existence in the form of illusory power, and their existence can also have a different kind of spirituality of their own. This is similar to your own brain, but compared with the flexible thinking and emotions derived from the fixed brain, this so-called virtual brain is much slower and too restrictive, and it must be done after a lot of thinking. It resonates everywhere in the body. Tang Heo slowed down, seeing that both Tang San and Ji-Fei seemed to be fascinated by what they were listening to, and they started to think on their own, and he continued involuntarily, the root cause of your current criticism of invalidating your soul power as it is, because your own second martial soul binds your fixed brain. In disguise, it can also be said that you are a fixed brain as the leader, while your virtual brain is making trouble and trying to control your soul power and even your own. Everything related to thinking, which leads to the invalidation of your soul power from time to time. It's like 2 armies fighting each other. In the past, there were soul masters and ordinary people in the camps of both sides. The power of check and balance between the two still existed indirectly, but now the soul masters of one side surrendered to the other camp inadvertently. So, in their original camp, there are only equal people left, and these ordinary people are all proud. They are above the fixed thinking. So even in the face of continuous bullying by the powerful side, they firmly believe that, as long as they are immortal, just don't give up, and wait for the day when the light shines. And you're definitely at this point right now. So maybe I don't have that much to teach you, but it is a method that can help you really fix your brain and turn around. It is precisely because of this that I say this is your chance to turn around, although it may be an opportunity. It's not very sexual, but one thing is certain, it can be temporarily suppressed. Look here. Zio-san, you should also look here. You are different from Zio-Fei. What I want you to see is the superimposed comprehension of techniques, while Zio-Fei needs to delve into my training method and combine it with your own to suppress the invalidation of soul power function. Hearing Tang Heo's voice, Ji-Fei and Tang San came back to their senses in an instant, and their eyes couldn't help revealing extremely touched expressions. Undoubtedly, what Tang Heo wanted to teach this is what they each desperately need right now. Small theater. Tang San intentionally or unintentionally listened to his father Tang Heo talking about Ji-Fei's brain theory, and suddenly he thought of a very false thing. Father said that Wuhan represents the brain, and brother Ji, like me, also has twin Wuhan, so brother Ji, like me, has 3 brains, and dad now says that brother Ji's virtual brain has messed up. Although brother Shang-Ji has 2 virtual brains represented by Wuhan, and 1 fixed brain, he actually only has 2 brains. What does this mean? It means brother Ji has a brain. Little San, you just said that a person has only 1 heart, but Uncle Tang said that a person has 3 hearts. so I'm missing 2 hearts. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Chaotic Cloak 1 Strength Stack 1 Soul Group Soul Power is more impeccable. Controversy, mixed voices, sluggish iron conversations. The moment Tang Heo picked up the forging hammer in his hand, Ji-Fei felt a very heavy and oppressive aura sweeping out, and accompanied by a strong buzzing sound, it surrounded Tang Heo's body. Subconsciously, Ji-Fei and Tang San both backed away, and the originally opened eyes couldn't help closing a gap. The two of them felt the scorching breath rushing towards them continuously, making them both feel that their eyes were red and had to squint together. The brain infuses consciousness, the meridians run through, the nerves are delivered, and the heart bursts with power to drive the whole body. As he said that, Tang Heo separated his steps, which seemed to be almost the same as the labor-saving principle Ji-Fei used before, but it was obvious that Tang Heo's movements were more mature. His feet seemed to be directly embedded in the soil, and he held the forging hammer tightly with his open hands, not far from the end of the hammer, and in an extremely ingenious way, he and his 2 casts showed a posture of being able to borrow strength. The tense body suddenly began to exert force, raised his hand, gripped the hammer tightly, exerted force with his hand, dropped the hammer, and the points were combined to form a line, and the cracked iron block pressed out a deep line in an instant, accompanied by the scorching hot breath imprint. Ji-Fei and Tang San both gasped for a moment. They couldn't believe that Tang Heo could hit the iron block with such an obvious mark with just 1 hammer, and it was obvious that the burst of force was stronger, and the wave was even stronger. After a while, the mighty power and Tang Heo seemed to merge into one. He was hammer, and he was him. This is not only the process of bursting out of the power cycle on the naked eye, but also the process of a person controlling his own consciousness. Every step and every movement blended together seems to be able to release a complete cycle. Tang Heo continued to swing the hammer and said at the same time, the control of power can be said to be the most subtle part of a person. At the same time, the master control power of one's own brain cannot rely solely on one's own fixed brain. You must be good at spreading it out. The power of the martial soul, to check and balance it. Ji-Fei's eyes were all scattered. He seemed to have captured the essence of Tang Heo's words. Forging iron is not his main purpose. What he needs to learn is the method of using strength to integrate with his own soul power to form a Dzogchen cycle state. Come on, little San, come and try the movements I just borrowed, and your movements combining Xiaofen's demeanor with what I just said. Tang Heo unhurriedly passed the forging hammer in his hand to Tang San. Tang San nodded seriously, then took the forging hammer and walked to the forging platform. He recalled a little, learning from Tang Heo the posture just now recalled the labor-saving method Ji-Fei used before, and his gaze was on the hot and red iron block that was sunk in a hammer mark. Power. Is this the principle that my father taught me? That's how it is. Seeing Tang San start forging in exactly the same way, Tang Heo didn't say much. Instead he picked up the small forging hammer and handed it to Ji-Fei. You don't need to learn the power and method of forging and hammering that are so profound, but what you need to understand is the method of controlling power that is even more profound and difficult than this. The invalidation of soul power is a drawback, and it belongs to you at the same time. Strength. Seize this opportunity well. I will say the same thing. Don't use your second martial soul. Try now. Use this forging hammer as a node for the concentration of soul power. Penetrate your own soul power. Imagine that the power that has invalidated the soul power will not condense again. Release your own soul power to summon you. Let me take a look at what the substitute existence you mentioned is. Tang Heo nodded, seeming to express his affirmation to Ji-Fei, believing that he can definitely do this. But to be honest, Ji-Fei still has a little guilty conscience in his heart. After all, he just watched Tang Heo use such a profound forging technique for a while, and can he really do this by virtue of this teaching? Question mark? Don't belittle yourself too much. Think about what you lack compared to other people. That Tang San can integrate in such a short period of time, can't you? And you are even stronger than Tang San. The level of innate full soul power has reached level. Ji-Fei suddenly got a little confused. Yes, I seem to have been caught in a samsara. Why should I fantasize about being by Tang San's side all the time? He has his own opportunity. Can he just become a vassal? Where is he worse than him? He is also a time traveler and more or less understands the situation of this world. At least he won't be as confused as Tang San, who hasn't come into contact with this world yet. Although I don't have Zuanshan Kung Fu and Tang San's knowledge of hidden weapons, but my soul power is as high as TH level after awakening. I only need to get the first soul ring, and then I can directly get the second soul ring Huan. In that case, he would directly become the existence of a great soul master. And he is also a two-handed martial spirit. Although Tang Heo said that he could not use this second martial spirit crown of destruction, what did it reflect for Ji-Fei himself? Tang Heo definitely has something to hide from himself. Absolute. Tang Heo has always been very nice to him since he was a child, even as far as he can remember. Much better than Tang San. Maybe outsiders can't see it, but Ji-Fei definitely knows it in his heart. Once Ji-Fei also asked if Tang Heo was his father and why his surname was crossing Ji instead of Tang like Tang San's. Of course, he had his own intentions when asking Ji-Fei like this, and Tang Heo just answered no. As for why the surname is Ji, Tang Heo's answer is also very simple. Your father's surname is Ji. Your surname is not Ji. What is your surname? It can be said that since childhood, the only memory Ji-Fei knew about his parents was that his father's surname was Ji, and he didn't know anything about the rest, let alone the identities of his parents, or what. But anyone with a discerning eye can tell that Ji-Fei's parents are definitely not ordinary people. If they are really two ordinary farmers, why didn't Tang Heo tell him? This is obviously unreasonable. Ji-Fei gradually came to his senses. He took the forging hammer handed over by Tang Heo. He didn't say much, just took a deep look at Tang Heo, and Tang Heo's eyes gradually became flat, but not ugly. There is definitely a glimmer of hope left in it. This hope is diverse, like wanting to. It's like I don't want to. Ji-Fei began to mobilize his own soul power. He no longer just relied on his own brain to disperse such thoughts, but actually spread them to his right hand. Such thoughts turned into streams of unstoppable consciousness that reached the mysterious Wuhan. Ji-Fei was startled. It seemed that holding the hammer as a reference was indeed the correct way. Then Ji-Fei looked at the imprint gradually emerging on his right hand. He hurriedly walked aside, looked at the piece of black, introverted and read on, slowly raised the small hammer, and then it was not so hard, and not so unusual. The speed was not very fast, and the pace was not as professional as Tang Heo. As if it was casual, it seemed deliberate. And then the hammer with one hand fell steadily on the iron block. Boom. End of this chapter. Chapter 29. There seemed to be a warm liquid flowing in his palm. Ji-Fei knew that it was the power of soul power. The soul power gathered from all parts of his body poured into his right hand without any thought. It didn't feel very comfortable, but it gave Ji-Fei a feeling of re-examining himself. Suddenly, Ji-Fei felt that his brain seemed to be a little dizzy, and at the same time, in the blink of an eye, the familiar and hated power of invalidating soul power was continuously released from Ji-Fei's brain. Here we come, Ji-Fei said excitedly. Tang Heo nodded when he heard the words, and slowly reminded Ji-Fei from behind, don't focus on the power that invalidates the soul power. Concentrate on transforming the soul power that you have condensed, and then try to control this power. Don't be impatient for now. You are imagining the martial soul in your right hand. Come. Try. Gather the martial soul together. Hearing Tang Heo's voice, Ji-Fei was shocked. Yes, why did he always take this soul power nullification power so seriously? Sure enough, if you care about it, you will be confused. It is still clear to the onlookers. I blame myself for thinking too much. After all, this is related to the things that I have to deal with on the road of Soul Master in the future. With his mind sinking, Ji-Fei slowly closed his eyes, and the forging hammer in his hand gradually stagnated. He seemed to be thinking about something, imagining something in his heart. I don't know when. Tang San's beating hand also slowly stopped, and he looked at the strange changes in Ji-Fei's body at this moment with somewhat astonished eyes. Even Tang Heo, who was originally standing behind, came to the front. The originally dull eyes gradually revealed their sharpness. All I saw was that two twinkling rays of light gradually condensed from Jifei's palm, one white and one black, and the two rays of light swirled back and forth, as if turning into a cloud of pure mist, and then accompanied by the two rays of light as the rotation speed became faster and faster. More and more light mist gathered in Jifei's palm. Suddenly, Jifei opened his originally closed eyes, and two beams of light shot out, exuding a palpitating power, and as more and more condensed fog, he could roughly see through Jifei's palm to that indescribable outline. Martial soul, show. Boom. The deafening sound and the roar of anger intertwined together, accompanied by the howling wind. The whole house was shaken to the point of collapse. With a single wave of Tang Heo's hand, a natural barrier was formed in a trance to completely cover the surroundings, and the strange and terrifying aura originally released from Jifei's body seemed to be enveloped and suppressed within it. Jifei was completely stunned for a moment when he saw a figure in the palm of his hand. He touched the small person about the size of a palm. His whole body was jade white, just like a normal person. His delicate and small facial features were very clear, just like jade in the rough. As if carved out, it stood quietly on Jifei's palm at this moment, without any movement. Jifei was a little happy, not only that he was not restrained by the invalidation of soul power just now, but also that he had found some methods. But as the saying goes, where there is joy, there is depression, and this villain in front of him is undoubtedly the source of Jifei's depression. Uncle Tang, what kind of martial spirit is this? Looking at the little man in his palm, Jifei was confused for a moment. Can this be considered a martial spirit? Tang Heo's expression was also very dull. He came close and looked at the delicate little figure in Jifei's hands. He suddenly reached out and stroked the little figure. Jifei thought it was just a stroking, but who would have thought that? That villain suddenly opened his mouth. I don't know this one, but I'm dumbfounded by this one. How can it be regarded as a mouth? It was completely like a crack in nothingness, and it was swallowed directly along Tang Heo's fingers towards his arm. In an instant, Tang Heo's reaction speed was extremely sharp. He turned sideways and dodged directly, and the villain suddenly rose into the air, still chasing Tang Heo's fingers with his crack-like mouth. Is this what is going on? Naturally, Jifei didn't know, and even said that he didn't even know what happened in his mind now. The Wuhan he awakened actually had his own consciousness and will chase people to bite. Tang Heo picked up the hammer conveniently and then slammed it hard on the little man's delicate face. Suddenly, Jifei felt his face numb, and he subconsciously touched his face again. Seeing that the villain actually directly swallowed the hammer that Tang Heo hit on its face. And it seemed that he felt satisfied in spirit and appetite because he swallowed the hammer. The delicate little man actually patted his stomach in a humane way, wiped his mouth, and jumped onto Jifei's hand in a flash, and then facing Jifei's hand, he opened his mouth again. Jifei was taken aback. He was just about to shake the delicate little man aside when he suddenly found that the little man spit out another hammer for him, holding it in his hand, as if asking for credit. Looking at Jifei, is this the one from just now? Jifei thought about it for a while, and soon he completely denied it. From the length, it seems to be, but now from the appearance, it is definitely different. Because the hammer, which was originally dark and damaged, turned into a brand new hammer with a dark gold body and traces of blood red lines inside. After the delicate little man spit out the hammer, he stood quietly on Jifei's palm again. Am I a beast spirit? Jifei looked at Tang Heo, who was already stunned. Picking up the hammer casually, Jifei staggered and almost fell to the ground. The hammer is really too heavy. Why didn't he feel the weight when the villain held it and stood on his hand just now? Is this dark blood and heavy gold? Tang San on the side suddenly said, breaking the embarrassing situation just now. Brother G, can you show me this hammer? Here you are, be careful. Jifei casually handed the hammer that the delicate little man spit out to Tang San's hand. On the other hand, Tang Heo began to look at the little man in Jifei's palm again, rubbing his chin with his broad hand, as if lost in thought. This is really dark blood and gold. And Tang San on the side looked at the hammer again and let out an exclamation, which shocked Jifei. What a dark blood and gold. Isn't it just a hammer that was swallowed and spit out again? Do we need to shout so much? Ah. The sound of opening his mouth suddenly sounded again. Ji-Fei subconsciously wanted to withdraw his hand and suddenly turned his head to find that it was actually Tang Heo who was holding a piece of iron and threw it directly into the delicate little man's mouth. And the delicate little man also suddenly he opened his mouth and swallowed the piece of iron directly. But in the blink of an eye, the villain suddenly spit out another piece of iron that was exactly the same as before, but it was different from the previous black piece of iron. This time it turned into a piece of blue gold iron. The villain showed it to Ji-Fei, as if asking for credit. This is mithril submerged water. The exclamation came from Tang San again. He couldn't even believe his eyes. These artifact materials that were tightly stored in his mind from previous life legends would actually be displayed in front of his eyes in this way. Uncle Tang, what's going on? Ji-Fei seemed to grasp something special. Could it be? Tang San's gaze also became a little hot, as if seeing his posture. He was going to say that all the irons and hammers beside him would be stuffed into the delicate little man's mouth in Ji-Fei's hands. Phew, this martial spirit of yours seems a bit weird. Little San, come on, release your blue silver grass and let it go into this villain's mouth. End of this chapter. Chapter 30. Hearing what Tang Heo said, Ji-Fei quickly caught a glimpse of the doorway and his breathing seemed to become hotter. If it was really as he had guessed, it seemed that he was really laying eggs made an incredible martial soul. Pay attention to your image. Your saliva is dripping out. Hearing this, Ji-Fei finally came to his senses and quickly wiped it twice, as if he was really stupid just now. Come on, little San, stuff your grass into the mouth of the foodie martial soul and see if it can swallow it. Ji-Fei turned around to look at Tang San and said seriously. Tang San didn't know why, but he didn't have any hesitation after his father and brother Ji said so. A blue silver grass condensed in his palm, a faint light blue halo slowly gathered together, and at the same time, accompanied by the soul power Tang San released, the blue silver grass seemed to stretch its body and began to sway its leaves, and when Tang San slowly released it into the mouth of the delicate villain, the blue silver grass seemed to be somewhat humane. Fear actually started to crazily spread towards Tang San's palm, as if he didn't want to enter the delicate villain's mouth. Okay. Tang San frowned. He felt that his blue silver grass seemed to lose strength, as if he wanted to escape from his control at that moment just now. On the contrary, the delicate little person in Ji-Fei's palm seems to be disregarding everything else. You still want to run away with something in your mouth? This is absolutely impossible. Let me have a bite or two first. Ah. The villain floated in front of Tang San on the spot, then opened his mouth involuntarily and swallowed the blue silver grass released by Tang San directly, and in an instant Tang San felt his pain. A sense of loss of strength came from the body, and the weak soul power that was still emitting disappeared in an instant. Huh? What's going on? How could the soul power suddenly disappear so much? Tang Heo looked at Tang San's heels and feet seemed to be a little disordered, and he could see the reason at a glance. And then a more subtle thing happened quietly again. The delicate villain didn't open his mouth this time, but slowly raised his right hand like Tang San, and then, like Tang San, the azure halo was released, and the blue silver grass hovering like a honeycomb bloomed, and the blue silver grass in the palm of the delicate villain was different from Tang San's, with traces of golden light running through the slender leaves, as if one by one. It is natural to see. Even the martial soul can be boosted. And it seems that it can be taken as its own. Tang Heo exclaimed tremblingly. Ji-Fei, try to see if you can control this blue silver grass. Ji-Fei glanced at Tang Heo. He could tell that Tang Heo was very shocked. Then he looked at the delicate villain. How could he know how to do it all at once? Is it possible that this is also voice activated? Come on. My martial soul. Possession. Ji-Fei said to the delicate little man with a slight mental retardation. Fei, it seems that your martial soul can leave the body. It is not an ordinary beast martial soul. It should be similar to a mutated beast martial soul. You should be able to let it release the power of the martial soul through your own dialogue, and you after applying the soul ring, you can also control the martial soul to release the soul skills through words. Tang Heo reminded standing aside. It's really voice activated, but when I said it just now, I clearly had a strong desire to possess. Ji-Fei was stunned. The strong desire to possess just now was definitely real, but since Tang Heo said it's not easy for him to continue trying, release the blue silver grass. Ji-Fei said to the delicate little man. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the villain turned his little hand and then swept out a large pile of blue silver grass, which turned into whip-like existences and flicked back and forth in the air, making a rustling sound. Every blue silver grass, as if the grass had turned into a sharp blade. The power released by the operation of the soul power became stronger and stronger. You can really gain attribute power by eating it, and it can also be increased. The weak blue silver grass that has not been given any soul rings can actually have such hardness. It seems to be comparable to her blue silver grass. Tang Heo's gaze was brilliant. He couldn't believe that there was such a weird martial spirit in this world. Not only could it swallow iron lumps and spit out precious materials, but it could also devour other people's soul power and then transformed into that person's martial soul. Uncle Tang, I know. Suddenly, Ji-Fei's eyes lit up, and he raised his head to look at Tang Heo. I know what my martial soul is called, and what its real ability is. Oh, tell me about it? Naturally, Tang Heo also roughly knew the ability of Ji-Fei's martial soul, but he could know that the awakened martial soul can definitely obtain its own ability and power through the martial soul. To a certain extent, Wuhan can also be regarded as the existence of a life system, and it can also be regarded as a kind of virtual brain. This martial spirit is called chaos, and this villain form is a normal form of it. There is also a mad form that I can't release. If I talk about it deflationally, it means that this martial spirit is a foodie type mutant martial spirit, right? In the end, Ji-Fei obviously had a questioning tone. He didn't know much about Wuhan, but he had just thought of what kind of perverted Wuhan he imagined. Chaos. What is chaos? In a simple sentence, devour yourself. It was said in the previous life that chaos was one of the four great beasts, and it seemed that it was just such a stupid beast, but Ji-Fei believed that this was not true. What are you imagining? An existence that is as powerful as the characters in those prehistoric legends. What is this chaos? The legendary four fierce beasts. Wrong. From Ji-Fei's point of view, that is the legendary Central Emperor who is older than Pangu. It is said that a long time ago there was a world without heaven and earth. In that world, there were no humans, no beasts, and no manifested life. There were only a group of beings called immortals, and the most powerful ones belonged to it three. The most powerful of them belongs to chaos. Chaos is different from other immortals. It has no mouth and no facial features. After digging the 7 orifices, nothing happened before, but at the end, chaos dug out a mouth, and it swallowed all the existing things in one mouthful, and finally swallowed itself. Of course, we don't know how to swallow it, but we can be sure that the chaos that Pangu split later is naturally this so-called chaos. In this way, it can be said that this chaos is not the chaos of the four fierce beasts. And what kind of martial spirit did Ji-Fei imagine? That is naturally the most powerful existence. But it is obvious that this chaos martial soul is definitely not the real chaos. If it is really that chaos, then all of them may have become Chinese food now. And it's still the kind of Chinese food that's not even enough to fit between the teeth. Through the performance just now, for your martial soul, I can roughly guess that this chaos can enhance its attributes through devouring, and it still ignores everything. Even a martial soul can swallow it. And the martial soul here is not directly devouring, just you need to swallow their soul power indirectly, and at the same time, as long as the soul power of your martial soul has been swallowed, the soul power of the person will be reduced by half. If I guess correctly, it should be fed back to you. But this ability is extremely limited. I just don't know if I can swallow multiple soul powers at once and release multiple martial souls. And it seems that there is still a time limit. Ji-Fei suddenly reminded, because he had already seen the blue silver grass in the delicate little man's hand gradually disappear. Tang Heo nodded. Fortunately, at least what I calculated should be correct. If there are no restrictions, it would be too perverted. Even if the Wuhan type has life attributes, the increase is not enough. It is only temporary. But dead things are different. As for the ability of your martial soul, it can be said that it is used to borrow the martial soul for the time being, right? And it seems that you still have the reserved ability. You only need to devour it once, and then you can use it anytime and anywhere. As for what you said, the time limit may gradually increase with the improvement of your own soul power in the future. Tang Heo's gaze then turned to the condensate in his hand, which Tang San exclaimed, called sinking mithril. It seems that it is a living auxiliary type existence, and Fei himself has the restriction of invalidating soul power. Only when he cultivates the second martial soul can he truly become the existence he wants to be, but he is absolutely not will allow. So what Fei can achieve in this life is probably an auxiliary type of soul master, right? In this case, there should be no worries? Maybe. Chaos martial soul enhances the attribute of soul skill, enhances the attribute of martial soul, but they all have a time limit, but there is no limit for dead objects. But what is the real meaning of this martial soul? Vomit. When Tang Heo fell into deep thought, his exquisite villain suddenly spit out the swallowed blue silver grass directly with his mouth, and spit out all that was left. This Tang Heo didn't care much, because he just glanced at it, and saw that the spit out blue silver grass was not very different from the previous blue silver grass. But Fei's gaze settled down. He quickly put away his martial spirit. His face was like water. He didn't seem to be too embarrassed or excited. On the contrary, he looked at it calmly. Tang Heo. Here, the soul power has been nullified again. Fei seemed to use this as a reason to cover up an inexplicable fact. But at this moment, Fei's heart was filled with a huge wave of excitement. I see. Chaos. Chaos. I said, what is chaos? So this is the true meaning of this martial spirit, the ability to spit out treasures. It seems that the treasures spit out can be transformed into the hands of chaos villains. The treasure is equivalent to my own martial soul, but it is reflected in the villain's body. Treasures before the heavens and the earth were opened up, spit out treasures. So what kind of treasure is that light that I just stuffed back directly? It seems that it is not a light, but just a trace of the sharpness of a treasure, right? If Fei hadn't seen the gleam of light and Douluo's words spit out by his Wuhan chaos at the last moment, he would have believed Tang Heo's words, and he would only be able to pass Tun Wuhan became an auxiliary soul master. But Fei found out at the last moment, and he roughly guessed it, based on the matter of spitting out treasures and Fei's understanding of chaos Wuhan. And that ray of light just now is undoubtedly the best reflection. Fortunately, at the last moment, when I was about to spit out the treasure, my martial spirit disappeared. Otherwise, I really made some earth-shattering treasure, and I really can't explain these things. Since you think so, I'll let you think so. A treasure in chaos? What kind of peerless style should that be? My chaotic martial soul seems to be more perverted than the system book. I don't know how many times, and it also has the ability to enhance familiarity. It only needs a little of your soul power to transform your martial soul. The concealment just now seems to be correct. Time limit? If it weren't for the blue silver grass you gave my chaos Wuhan to eat like feeding pigs, my chaos Wuhan would spit it out for you. Why don't you feed it to you? Your own soul power. Regarding Tang Heo, Fei obviously had reservations. He didn't think he could see the true power of his martial soul, and his own strong desire to possess a martial soul also proved that most of Tang Heo's inferences were wrong. Although Tang Heo is a Haoshan Douluo, Fei felt that Tang Heo had such an inconspicuous defensiveness towards him. Although he acted very warm to him, this feeling came from the heart and could not be concealed at all. Let's go to the next place as soon as possible. Go to the academy in Notting City to study. I always feel a little uncomfortable. I hope that day will come soon. Luo is right. Fei won't fully display the Chaos Martial Soul's abilities, but it's absolutely obvious that he can spit out treasures. As for what type of treasures he can spit out, who knows? When I find a chance, I have to ask this Chaos Martial Soul to spit out all the treasures for me to take a look at, those treasures that have been conceived before the chaos has opened, those treasures that have been dusted before they show their sharpness. Okay, now that Xiaofa's martial spirit is clear, although it has transformed into this existence called chaos, it obviously has no disadvantages for you, so you don't need to worry too much about it. As for your martial spirit, I'm afraid that most of the abilities you have glimpsed today have already been seen. As for the others, you will need to apply spirit rings in the future before you can slowly show their strengths. Tang San looked at Fei, and he had some thoughts in his heart. Brother G, can you give me these two special items? I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. It's useless if I ask for it, as long as you're happy. It's really useless for Fei to ask for this thing. These metals may be rare treasures in Tang San's eyes, but there is really no other difference between Fei's place and the previous black iron block. Isn't it easy to want it yourself? Chaos Martial Soul, come, feed me. Throw me up after eating. Fortunately, the Chaos Martial Soul is not conscious, otherwise, he would definitely eat Fei first, and see if he can spit out a more awesome Fei. You may feel that the Wuhan setting is a bit vague and seems to have no effect when you see it here, but I can say that it will definitely not be like this. This Chaos Martial Soul was also determined after I thought twice. As for the things that spit out treasures, I also said in the article that I only use the delicate villain transformed from the Chaos Martial Soul as a medium. These things can be used by the villains transformed into chaos. As for the specific abilities set by this martial soul, I will show them slowly. It may be as simple as Tang Heo's deduction. Although the Tang Heo I set here is a character at the level of titled Douluo, his understanding of Wuhan itself may not be as good as some people, right? And I will slowly reveal the specific abilities and specific functions of Fei, the chaotic martial spirit, later on. Remember that what I have written now is actually not comprehensive. After all, the follow-up martial soul still needs to apply a soul ring, and Fei has the disadvantage of the second martial soul, which is the power to invalidate the soul power. This is also something that needs to be resolved, but don't worry, I will slowly explain the power of this chaotic martial soul in an extremely appropriate way. Remember that this book is not long Aocean, it is definitely not long Aocean, and the protagonist I can't express in Xinsha villages to calm, right? Well, my route is a new one, so there are a lot of things explained in the early stage. You can't help but want to complain about it when you see this. The one who has written so many words and is still wandering around Xinsha village is really a useless protagonist. No, I want to talk about the subtle things that are serious. It is precisely because of my follow-up plot that I have to go around in this novice village. My writing power is limited, and I can only write in this general form, because the Wuhan setting is concealed. For the follow-up plot, you can roughly speculate according to the introduction of this book. Also about the setting of the second martial soul and the setting of the TH level of innate full soul power. You may be a little confused, right? To put it simply, you can think of Fei's innate full soul power at level as the combined soul power of the two martial souls. Two martial souls must also be able to display only one soul power system. Just like what Tang San himself said, the fake innate full soul power obtained from his Zuanshan Kung Fu cultivation. Of course we can't rule out that the clear sky hammer is really abnormal, but what I want to say is that you can also use Fei. The TH level of innate full soul power can be regarded as a relatively false existence, but the soul power is still their point, as long as Fei obtains one soul ring. He can directly obtain the second soul ring. I hope you can take a look at this passage. It doesn't cost money anyway. Haha. End of this chapter. Chapter 31. The skill of forging, the skill of hunting, the song of soup cooking. 1. Remember the question I asked you? What is the most important thing about forging? It seemed that, after witnessing Fei's mutated martial spirit, Tang Heo's expression also eased, and he was no longer tense as before. Control power. Ordinary materials become divine weapons. Ordinary fire forges divine weapons. Tang San glanced at the mithril in his hand and that forging hammer made of profound divine material. His breath became hot involuntarily. Thinking secretly in my heart, now my original plan can be realized. This is really all thanks to Brother G and Brother G's extremely miraculous martial soul. There is such a wonderful martial soul in the world. If I also have it, the hidden weapons recorded in my memory may be of lower quality. I don't know how many times it will be increased in terms of quantity, right? Fei didn't answer Tang Heo's question. It's not that he doesn't know the answer, on the contrary, he sees it more clearly than anyone else. But it seems to be different now. The martial spirit he awakened doesn't seem to be such a normal type. Is blacksmithing the only way to eliminate the invalidation of soul power? Fei couldn't imagine what his future would be like if this was true. Is it? Is it possible? Do you want to carry a forging furnace with you? Do you need to start with a blacksmith before playing against people? This is really an unrealistic question. Are you stupid? At this moment, Luo Kingling's words rang out from Jifei's ears again. Jifei took a look at Luo. What's the matter? Am I not thinking correctly? Is there still a lot of places where the soul power is invalidated and bound to me? And it is obvious that the solution Tang Heo taught me is this one. Luo shook her head. Didn't you see it all the time? What Tang Heo taught you has always been to focus on distracting the brain, to automatically control the soul power to the two martial souls, and it is precisely because of this that you only then can the disadvantage of invalidating the soul power be eliminated, although it is only temporary. But I have to say that you have not fully comprehended it, Master. Listening to Luo's words, Jifei seemed to have touched something that he hadn't considered. It seems that I'm too eager for quick success. That's right. If there is no limit to my martial soul, everyone will want to kill me first, right? After all, no one wants to see me grow up. I'm afraid even if it is. Thinking of this, Jifei couldn't help looking at Tang Heo and Tang San beside him, and shrunk his neck. He clearly remembered the terrifying killing intent emanating from Tang Heo that night. It makes people shudder. The two of you can learn from each other when you are forging iron. Jifei learns your forging power, but you need to learn from Jifei the understanding of forging and the real and lifelike fire control method. As he said that, Tang Heo walked slowly towards the forging platform. He slowly lowered his body and controlled the bellows with one hand. Fei can be said to be very good at controlling fire, but it's not where you should really concentrate. Remember, you need to learn how to spread your mind over the two spirits, so that you can temporarily eliminate the disadvantages brought about by the invalidation of spirit power. Come on, I'll show you how to control the fire in person, and how to achieve the ultimate fire control method. Tang Heo pulled the bellows, and the turbulent wind slowly poured into it, and the invisible winds, who didn't know whether they were soft or strong, just got in like this. At the same time, the whistling flame rose up slowly, and there were not so many bells and whistles. The orange-yellow flame spread out at a speed visible to the naked eye from the original volume that was no more than the thickness of an arm. Fire control is mainly about the word control. Only when you really imagine the flame as another group of power around your hands can you say that you have succeeded more than half. And you must remember that the control fire doesn't necessarily have to be great, but it can't be perfect. This sentence may not be fully understood by you now, but in the future you will come into contact with this meaning from the relationship between fire control and forging. What the hell is it? Watching the flames of the bellows gradually stabilize, Tang Heo seemed to have finished demonstrating his technique, then slowly stood up and looked at Jifei. Little San, come on, you learn the technique I just did and combine you. And Jifei the boy learned how to pull the bellows. With that said, Tang Heo picked up the forging hammer on the side. He automatically skipped the dark red hammer, picked up a swarthy black hammer, and started with it. He didn't say anything, as if directly demonstrating himself the more esoteric hammer technique controlled by him. Didn't you teach the chaotic cloak wind hammer technique before? What's going on now? Jifei didn't understand, so he touched his head, but he didn't say much. Who knows what Tang Heo was thinking in his heart? Anyway, it wouldn't do him any harm. Boom. Tang Heo's steps were extremely solid. His technique penetrated through, and the forging hammer he held tightly seemed to be holding a person's lifeblood. Then he swung the forging hammer and smashed it down on the burning red iron block. Iron, black and crimson surged out at the same time. At this time, Tang Heo seemed to be relying on the power of the rebound to continue to wave the forging hammer in his hand again and again, repeatedly waving and rebounding, and after dozens of hammers, the originally burning red iron seems to have been endowed with a variety of life. The notes of the life of the iron block were beating, and the collision between the hammer and the iron block splashed hot scarlet sparks, drew a series of beautiful arcs, and then fell heavily into the forging furnace. Jifei was dazzled by the sight. Tang San waved his hands involuntarily towards the air. In a short while, the original thick iron block was forged and cut in half. Fei gave it a new name for the miraculous bounce back forging method. Advanced version of the random cloak wind hammer method. This kind of technique is definitely not something that ordinary people can learn. This kind of technique is definitely not something that ordinary people can master. And this kind of technique for me is definitely not something that ordinary people can observe. Remember, practice makes perfect. The real forging is not accomplished overnight. Only by constantly honing one's technique, strength and trivial matters can one reach the point where one can truly follow one's inclinations like a god's help. Fanti can best reflect a person's forging ability. If you can forge a piece of ordinary iron as you like, then you are not far from being a master blacksmith. Practice a lot of methods, and don't just think about imitating movements. The most important thing when thinking about forging is to control the timing. The forging of dozens of hammers seemed to be completed in an instant, but it gave Fei and Tang San a long aftertaste. When the two of them really came back to their senses, Tang Hao had already disappeared, and he probably returned to the inner city. Have you gone to rest at home? End of this chapter. Chapter 30 to the skill of forging, the skill of hunting, the song of soup cooking. 2. In a blink of an eye, time passed like running water, and it was only a blink of an eye quietly, but Fei and Tang San were constantly sharpening themselves. Of course, most of this sharpening was on forging, and Tang Hao did, not without too much explanation. Anyway, it is forging without doing anything, training techniques, and following the heart. On the contrary, Fei gradually didn't care so much about forging and chaotic cloaking and hammering. What he learned every day was not some forging technique, but rather just holding a hammer all day long and thinking about the soul. How can I reduce or ignore the disadvantages of power invalidation? However, after this period of constant thinking about soul power and his own experiments, Fei's wonderful use of his martial soul and soul power has also reached a certain new level. Although he cannot fully understand the relationship between martial soul and soul power, although the power of time is subtle, but he did embark on the path of soul master's focused cultivation before ordinary people. In the eyes of outsiders, Fei might accept the guy standing in a daze next to the forging table with a hammer all day long, but Tang San knew exactly what he, Brother G, was doing. Sometimes, Brother G will release his martial soul. Of course, Brother G releases his martial soul in a very special way. He needs to hold a hammer in his left hand, and then release the exquisite villain martial soul in his right hand. Chaos. And after it was released, Brother G would stand there in a daze for an hour or two. At the beginning, his face was extremely gloomy, but then for some reason, his face improved more and more, and even recently I would laugh out loud from time to time, and the sudden laugh was really scary. And during this time, Brother G still took some pieces of iron, leftovers and even stones from time to time, and stuffed them into the mouth of the Wuhan villain. But he didn't seem to spit out anything good at all. Not like just now, when you wake up, if you swallow one like that, you will spit it out. But Brother G seems to be worried about whether there is something wrong with his martial soul. On the contrary, he becomes more and more excited. Growing up together, I really feel that Brother G is just a naive little fool. During this time, my father didn't teach us anymore, and my father's words seemed to have returned to normal. He only said a few words a day, but I know that my father will come to observe us inadvertently, and it shouldn't be said that he is observing Brother G. He said, maybe Brother G's wonderful martial spirit made Dad very interested. During this period of time, when I practiced step-by-step forging, and some techniques such as controlling the crane, to capture the dragon and the purple pole magic pupil, Brother G will follow me. Although my Brother G didn't ask me what I practiced, can you teach me? A kind of words, but I always feel that Brother G's motives are impure. I can't tell what kind of feeling that kind of impurity is, but it feels impure. Holy Soul Village, the outer mountains, the mountains and rivers go downhill. Shinhaoxia Slope is a densely forested hillside with a large drop from the ground outside the Holy Soul Village. There are no powerful soul beasts here, and most of them are animals similar to domestic livestock, and there is no attack. Most of them are herbivorous animals, but there may also be hidden dangers, and sometimes this place is also a place for people in several nearby villages to improve their food. Whimper. Hurry up. I've hit the shot, and today's dinner is settled. A series of rustling sounds and a delicate mourning sound suddenly sounded, and the two children who had been curled up in a depression yelled in surprise, got up quickly, and galloped away not far away. Looking at a rabbit whose white fur was stained with blood next to the tree root in the distance, the eyes of the two children could not help but light up with a sense of joy, and they hurried to catch up. That's right, these two children are Fei and Tang San. They have nothing to do recently. Tang San will go to practice near this mountain, river, and moon in the morning all day long. Fei naturally follows Tang San. Let's go for a walk and get some fresh air. But today, Tang San finished his cultivation very early. He called Fei and said that he wanted to show Fei a treasure that he had researched and created, and the location was just downhill in this mountain, river, and moon. Originally, Fei didn't want to come. Yes, after all, although there are no soul beasts on the surface, what about in the dark? Who knows? Although both of them have awakened soul power and are born with full soul power, they have no experience in fighting with soul masters. Fei had also learned about the process of soul masters fighting, but he always had a feeling of palpitations about those tall and mighty soul beasts, which seemed to be something he had to overcome by himself. Crouching down, Fei stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the two drooping ears of the rabbit that was shot through the head, and Fei's eyes were so sharp that he could see at a glance that the rabbit was almost completely submerged in the head. He couldn't help being stunned by a dark arrow about an inch in length. He thought to himself, is it this so-called hidden weapon that little Sanzi wanted to show him? Moreover, this hidden weapon seemed to be forged from the piece of mithril spit out by his martial soul. During this time, Zio Sanzi had been beating the mithril, and the tool he used was also the hammer that Fei's martial soul spit out. How about I didn't lie to you, did I? I call this hidden weapon. This is the simplest hidden weapon called Zhujian that I have researched. It has absolutely no power. Look, the head of this rabbit is directly penetrated. Yes, and definitely a one-hit kill. Tang San squatted aside excitedly showing Fei his hidden weapon. He was also very happy in his heart. His sleeve arrow was originally intended to be made from the piece of iron mother he forged, but because he had the mithril after that, he thought of using iron mother to forge arrows, and using mithril to forge a more powerful sleeve arrow device. And now it is undoubtedly a success. The power of the sleeve arrow far exceeded what he expected. Originally, he wanted to shoot the rabbit's abdomen or the not so tough part of the leg, but he suddenly thought of his own arrow and the sleeve arrow inspiration device. But they were all forged from materials that were almost legendary in his previous life, plus his absolutely infallible technique and the profound power of Zuanshan Kung Fu. It seems that it is extremely simple to shoot through a rabbit's head. If the arrow is really long enough, Tang San is even sure that he can directly penetrate the rabbit's head. Although the rabbit's head may not be comparable to the heads of some other animals, it is definitely the hardest part of the body. Not bad. The thing you tinkered with is very thin for hunting. You said why didn't you tinker with it early? In that case, we can go out to hunt often, and we still need to eat porridge all day long. Fei shook his head with a smile, looked at the rabbit in his hand that weighed 4 to 5 catties, and thought about it. This rabbit is not a soul beast. It may be a creature that has been around for a year or two. There are rumors of soul beasts, but I have never heard of that unlucky person encountering such a terrifying soul beast over the years. It's also thanks to Brother G. If it wasn't for the miraculous materials spit out by Brother G's martial spirit, I wouldn't be able to research such a powerful sleeve arrow. Tang San also touched his head in embarrassment and said with a smile, okay, let's eat rabbit meat tonight. No, it's not bad to eat it in the morning. It's all eaten anyway, but the ingredients at home seem to be insufficient. Let's go to Grandpa Jack's house to get some later. Today we can be considered thorough. Improve food. Fei laughed loudly. Eat rabbits. Brother G, is one enough? Shall we fight a few more? Tang San thought in his heart that his sleeve arrows had a total of 3 hidden arrows, and according to his own technique, he could definitely achieve 100 hits, even though he shot and killed such small animals that were running close to the ground. He was undoubtedly also 100 hits. There is no problem with the two, and after returning, you can pull out the dark arrow and use it again. Of course, if Tang San only shot at the prey's body, there would be almost no situation where he couldn't pull it out temporarily. As for the rabbit, he probably had to peel it off before he could take out the dark arrow, right? Fei thought about it for a while. He looked around. He couldn't find any trace of anyone in the undercurrent green dense forest. The surrounding was suddenly silent, which was inexplicable. The birds that were hovering in the sky were still screaming as they stood on the branches. The traces of the birds are gone. Could it be that they went out to look for food? Right. Be careful, there is something rushing over there. Luo has been floating beside Fei, and usually Luo will sit on Fei's shoulder or disappear directly, although it is cold, but Fei gradually got used to it. Something rushing over? Fei looked in the direction of Luo's finger. The trees there were relatively sparse, and the field of vision was relatively wide. There seemed to be nothing there. Brother G, be careful. Suddenly, Tang San slammed directly towards Fei's side, pushing Fei, who was still watching in the distance, to one side, and Tang San rolled to the other side viciously. The moment when Tang San pushed him to the last moment, Fei seemed to really see a black shadow rushing towards him at extremely high speed, biting the air with his sharp teeth, and then ruthlessly crashed into the big tree near his eyes. Bang! A sound. The big tree broke down in an instant, and Fei could only feel the buzzing sound in his head and ears and the slight pain on his skin as a surrounding stone splashed down and hit him. And when Fei slowly stood up sideways, he saw that Tang San was standing in front of him at this moment. His not so tall body seemed to be blocking a bigger creature. This is Hun. Fei subconsciously swallowed a few times. End of this chapter. Chapter 33. The Soul Beast Worm to Hyena. An angry heat wave was unleashed, and Fei looked over Tang San, who was standing in front of him, and saw a whole body about 4 feet long, with black sideburns attached to its back, and mottled black and white hair covering its body. The huge teeth were bent upwards fiercely, and the scowled eyes were fixedly staring at Tang San and Fei at the moment. The big tree that was broken by it fell towards the east, rolled up the surrounding rocks and smashed them into powder, and the leaves floated up. Fei subconsciously swallowed his saliva fiercely. He looked at the rabbit in Tang San's hand. The rabbit's head was still gurgling with blood. Fei seemed to understand something. The two of them seemed to have bumped into this strange thing, the sight. And the two of them hunted and killed this rabbit on its territory. Maybe it touched the slavishness of its territory. Perhaps an ordinary rabbit is harmless, but it is not so simple when it comes to the right to own territory. Fei looked at the white mist floating on the hyena-like animal. His memory was spinning rapidly. It seemed that this was the sign of a soul beast. Yes, there would be no special manifestations on ordinary animals. He showed it, and just now he saw this hyena directly smash this big tree with its head. This power, how hard is this head? It cannot be compared with ordinary animals at all. The white mist seems to be soul power. Xiosan seems to be a 10-year level soul beast. Fei subconsciously grabbed the stone at the side, and then stood up slowly. The hyena didn't intend to make a move, and the corner of its mouth dripped down. Originally, its eyes seemed to be on the rabbit held in Tang San's hand, but it seems that these two children have no combat power at all. Children, the designation of thin skin and tender meat is much better than this dead rabbit, right? The 10-year soul beast tends to be animalistic, and naturally it also tends to be dangerous. Since it dared to stand for so long, it can naturally feel that Fei and Tang San can't do him any harm. But is this really the case? A soul beast? A 10-year soul beast? Tang San stared at the hyena with uncertain eyes. He was almost a short distance away from the hyena. The speed of the hyena was extremely fast, as if he had some ambiguous memory ambitions in his previous life. Brother G, this thing seems to be a carnivore called a vortex hyena. I remember hearing Grandpa Jack say that there are many such things near the mountains, rivers, and moons. Old Jack. Fei thought about it. This is a soul beast. It's not like a chicken or a rabbit that can be hunted by them casually. Look at the exposed teeth of this hyena. Hiss. The curved length is glowing. I'm afraid that if the cold light pierces into the body, it will be penetrated directly, no matter where it is. Brother G, don't worry, I'll come. Tang San stepped back slightly. Fei stood aside. He knew that Tang San had designated to use the hidden weapon in his hand to deal with the hyena, but could this hidden weapon really be effective against spirit beasts? Wuhan. Yes, I have a Wuhan, and my Wuhan is not as simple as you imagined. Ji-Fei looked at his right hand, he exerted a little force, and a force that penetrated his body was released from him in an instant, and then Ji-Fei gathered the scattered soul power on his right hand, as if he was familiar with the road. Don't fail, don't fail, damn second martial soul, if you don't want to see me die here, don't do anything to me. Seeing the halo gradually manifested in the palm, Ji-Fei's originally slightly downcast eyes suddenly burst into bright lights. Success. Brother G, get out of the way. Suddenly, Tang San's loud shout startled Ji-Fei, who was immersed in the joy of summoning a martial spirit, and immediately, Ji-Fei only felt his eyes go dark, and a tearing impact directly hit his thigh. It came through, and there was a crisp clicking sound, and the martial soul that had been faintly summoned disappeared immediately. Ji-Fei knew that it wasn't because he didn't continue to exert his soul power, but that the power of invalidating soul power hit Ji-Fei again. Damn. Ah. The severe pain caused Ji-Fei to roll directly to the side. He held his right leg fiercely with both hands. The sharp impact was obviously aimed at Ji-Fei, and it was Ji-Fei's own fault for being careless, standing there in a daze, and watching the martial soul condense. The vortex hyena obviously saw that Ji-Fei seemed to be using its soul power, and it felt that the depth of Ji-Fei's soul power was definitely not simple, and seeing that Ji-Fei didn't seem to have any protective measures, it directly jumped over it out of animal nature. Come over. Ha ha. Two silent sleeve arrows shot at extreme speed. Tang San's eyes glowed with a purple halo slightly. The subtle steps under his feet were like a matador directly dodging the violent impact of the hyena in a nearly impossible way, and the cuff of his backhand was exposed. The two arrows shot directly towards the neck of the vortex-toothed hyena at high speed. Tang San flipped and jumped up, and landed beside Ji-Fei in the blink of an eye. He looked at Ji-Fei, who fell to the ground tightly holding his thigh. The clear voice just now was undoubtedly that of a vortex hyena. It came from breaking Ji-Fei's thigh. Ji-Fei felt like his whole body had collapsed. Although he was a top 10 person in his previous life, he had seen such a scene there. He may be much stronger than ordinary people in terms of temperament, but facing such a cruel soul beast, I'm afraid it would be unbearable for an ordinary person like him. Ugh. Boom. The original white hair on the neck of the hyena was instantly infected by two splashes of blood. Its body, which was no more than 3 or 4 feet tall, fell fiercely from the jumping mid-air, and then rolled onto the small ground. Then it slipped down the slope and hit the side of the fallen tree before it stopped. Brother G. Seeing that the well-toothed hyena didn't seem to have any signs of life, Tang San quickly helped Ji-Fei up. His small hand fell on Ji-Fei's thigh in an instant, and a thick and gentle Zuanshan Kung Fu force instantly invaded. Tang San's complexion there was a slight change, but then he calmed down. It's okay, it's okay, it's not really broken completely, it seems that it's just a bone crack. Ji-Fei was really stupefied. He looked at Tang San leaning over, and then at the lifeless hyena that slid down and hit the big tree. Suddenly an inexplicable feeling flooded his heart. I'm such a waste. Ji-Fei said this. Tang San raised his head and looked at Ji-Fei in a daze. Brother G, what you said is a bit too much. I also saw it just now. The hyena suddenly attacked you. You should be able to use the martial spirit, but it's normal that you don't have much time to react to such a close range impact. I practice close combat and reaction all day long. If the vortex-toothed hyena said, then I don't know what to say, but fortunately, the injury is not that serious, and it should be almost enough to go home, to recuperate after 100 days of injury. Anyway, I feel that, if Brother G just used the martial soul, it must be Brother G who protects me. Then I won't even have any chance to make a move. Moreover, Brother G, you can think of using the martial soul immediately, when you encounter difficulties. And I'm far from. Tang San stretched out his hand to support Ji-Fei. Ji-Fei shook his head and sighed. Okay, Brother G, let's leave quickly. It's really difficult to deal with such a strong bloody smell. If we encounter something more dangerous in a while. Tang San picked up the rabbit casually, and then slowly walked to the carcass of the vortex-toothed hyena. Looking closely, Ji-Fei could see how terrifying the power of Tang San's sleeve arrow was, and those two arrows went directly into the body. When he got to the neck of the hyena, the chapped wound was as big as a finger, and he subconsciously drew anywhere on his body. This power. Is this white circle a soul ring? Is this the soul ring? This hyena is really a soul beast. Fei and Tang San looked at the pure white light circle slowly floating on the carcass of the hyena, which seemed to be brighter and more transparent under the weak sunlight. Fei suddenly thought of something, then he stretched out his right hand to caress the pure white soul ring, and then nodded with some satisfaction. It looked like this in his eyes, but he saw that there was something on Fei's right hand. Two swimming lines, one black and one white, appeared out of nowhere and spun happily at a very fast speed, and when Fei let go of his hand, the originally flickering pure white soul ring suddenly became dim. Tang San didn't pay attention to these. This spirit ring did seem extremely subtle to him, but curiosity is always going to kill the cat, so it's better not to touch too much. Tang San pulled out the arrow, wiped it from the vortex-toothed hyena, and put it back on, then supported Fei and left slowly. You were clearly able to. Luo's doubtful voice sounded beside Fei's ear. Fei smiled indifferently. It's obviously okay. Can I use my martial soul? How could I use it at such a close distance? And although I condensed a little, I didn't react at all when the hyena suddenly attacked me. There are no chances. And you also feel it, right? Is the soul power nullified? Douluo asked. Yes and no. Although I have studied the magical effect of my chaos martial soul, I still can't use it now. Let's try it slowly, and even if I summoned it just now, I can only use the blue silver grass. But what is the function of the blue silver grass? Is it to restrain the hyena in an instant? It's ridiculous. End of this chapter. Chapter 34. The skill of forging, the skill of hunting, the song of soup cooking. Continued. Brother G, just sit here, and I'll go get ready. The longer the rabbit meat is boiled, the more delicious it will be. Although your leg injury is not serious, you can't do those strenuous exercises. I'll give it to you later. You heal and heal. With Tang San's support, Fei returned home. The severe pain flooded Fei's leg. He could feel that this leg was really going to be abolished. Fei's will could not be blamed for this. Weak. It's really hard to be broken by the vortex hyena and has not passed out yet. The feeling of being penetrated in an instant is really uncomfortable. Father, today we had rabbit meat to eat, and Brother G was injured. We met a soul beast. Coincidentally at this time Tang Heo walked in slowly from outside the door. Hearing that, he took a deep look at Fei, then at Tang San. He walked straight into the inner room without saying anything. Tang San was stunned on the spot, distressed in his heart. What happened to Dad? Why do you feel a little unhappy? It seems that there is some depression hidden. But in the end he didn't ask too much. Tang San turned around and picked up the rabbit he had already tidied up and walked towards the stove, which was counted as a stove, but was actually a stone stove. He stood on a small bench and put the rabbit on it. On the chopping board, he looked clearly at the thumb-wide wound on the rabbit's head and smiled lightly. The power of this sleeve arrow has not only been improved in terms of speed and power, but also its own range of force has been increased. So much, it's really scary. Fei leaned against the doorway. His eyes were a little bit thinking about something. His fingertips slowly touched his leg. A trace of burning sensation hit every nerve of him. The taste of pain is really not it was so good. The painful feeling seemed to make him wake up instantly like a divine enlightenment. It turns out that I was wrong all along. Of course, what can I do by Tang San's side? Without strength, I can't even do the most basic life-saving. Ideas are so rubbish. Come on, I'll help you heal this injury. Again, don't underestimate yourself too much. What you once had, and what you have now are what others don't have, but you have forgotten it. Luo stretched out her small hand, and her delicate white hand slowly landed on Fei's thigh. Through Fei, she could only feel a cool feeling released and penetrated into his bones and sense organs. He looked at Luo. There was a faint green halo exuding from his body, and his not so tall body seemed to become tall in an instant. Luo. Fei muttered to himself. Luo didn't continue to say anything, and the continuous green halo continuously poured into Fei's legs. After a while, Fei was surprised to realize that his legs didn't hurt anymore. What's going on here? Didn't you say that you've been hurt for 100 days? Why do I feel like I'm healed now? Ji-Fei raised his legs with common sense. Not as hot as before, on the contrary. The cold feeling is very comfortable, as if a pair of small hands are stroking the nerves in your body. It is extraordinarily refreshing. Douluo shook her head helplessly. I have already said that I'm your nemesis. Although I have not yet been able to let you see my real strength. Don't worry, the injuries may be seen by outsiders. It's a bit difficult to deal with and requires rest, but in my hands. Intractable diseases and other diseases come from my hands, which is something I used to do often. Looking at Douluo's appearance, Ji-Fei suddenly felt that he had obtained an exquisite treasure girl. Haha, it seems that the heavens closed a door for you and opened a bigger door for you. Although she was so cold and arrogant, but when it came to the critical moment, Douluo was the most useful. Slowly opening his eyes, Ji-Fei stood up and walked slowly towards Tang San, who was busy by the stove. Tang San held up the kitchen knife in his hand and pointed at the rabbit and cut a meal for a while. A bowl of meat returned to rear. The bone in rabbit meat is cut out. Brother G, why did you stand up? Didn't you tell you to sit there and recuperate? You can't move around with your injury. Tang San looked at Ji-Fei standing aside, stopped his busy hands, and complained a little. Said, no serious problem, but this injury is nothing more than a serious injury. The physique honed during this period of forging is not in vain. What are you going to do with this rabbit? To be honest, Ji-Fei hasn't eaten meat for a long time. He even almost forgot what the taste of meat is like, but fortunately, he finally had delicious meat to eat today, and Tang San's craftsmanship is also worth mentioning. Ordinarily, even plain porridge is much more fragrant and delicious than ordinary people's. This is what Ji-Fei really admires about Tang San. I haven't thought about it, or I'll fry it. It seems more delicious if I add some dried chilies. I still have some dried chilies at home. I have enough other ingredients, so I don't need to ask Grandpa Jack to borrow them. Spicy bunny? It seems that Zaya-san's is Zaya, who is a rabbit soul beast, right? I remember it seems to be. I didn't read the original book. I was busy and vague. I remember. Alas, if I knew that Zaya-san ate rabbits at such a young age is so. TSK. I can't imagine. Little San, come on. I'll tell you a cute children's rhyme about how to make a rabbit. It's just for reference. As for whether it tastes good or not, I don't know. Ji-Fei smiled lightly. Okay, brother G, you say so. Tang San readily accepted. Little rabbit, white and white. Ji-Fei spoke slowly, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Tang San heard the front. Little rabbit, white and white. Oh, what a beautiful word. It showed the cuteness of the little rabbit and the overall consonants. Little rabbit, white and white, with two ears lifted up, after cutting the artery and vein. It's so cute that it doesn't move. It's just skin. Chop a piece, put pepper and fry a dish, add water, cover it, and take it out of the pot. Sprinkle coriander before. Bring a bowl, those chopsticks, open your mouth to taste a piece. It is neither salty nor bland. It is really a delicious appetizer. When Ji-Fei finished speaking, Tang San's complexion also became a little unnatural. Can this whole passage be called a children's rhyme? How can there be any way to express the cuteness and consonants of the little rabbit? It's exactly how to make a rabbit. It seems that what Brother G just told me is how to make a rabbit? How is it? My children's rhyme is not bad, right? We don't seem to have coriander at home. Forget it. Adding some white onions will not make much difference. Let's do it first. I will light the fire for you. There is also butter ale at home. Today Uncle Tang, also you can take a sip of it comfortably and comfortably. I can definitely trust you, Zaya-san. Come on, let's play it a bit. When you meet someone you want to be nice to her, you must take her to eat rabbit meat, and then come to serve her. Recite this part of my rabbit children's rhyme. Ji-Fei patted Tang San on the shoulder, then walked towards the other side of the stove. Lit a fire, start making rabbits. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. You are ready to leave for Notting City tomorrow. The aroma of the meat coming from the paving is extremely strong. When the bubbling broth bursts in the iron pot, a trace of hot broth splashes at the moment, making people feel the trembling of the taste buds. There are 1 or 2 whitish scallions in it embellished with immature rabbit meat. The air is slightly filled with the pungent smell of dried chili, but more of it comes from the fragrance of rabbit meat. I can't help but want to make people smoke my nose hard, and I can't wait to smell all the aroma directly. It's like stuffing it up your nose. Little San's cooking skills are not bad. Fei rubbed his hands, then picked up a spoon, and began to put the rabbit meat in the iron pot. To be honest, Fei's taste buds have already begun to be touched. The special sense of taste is subtle, and the rabbit giving Fei a strong visual impact. This is the most comfortable place. Isn't this all due to the children's rhyme, taught by Brother G? It was already the best to eat when it was stir-fried, but I didn't expect that it would emit such a strong aroma after being soaked in broth. Brother has a hand. By the way, Brother G, I'm going to get Dad to eat. Tang San smiled slightly, jumped down from the small bench. Xiaozu subconsciously smashed it. Smashed it. Delicious. I really haven't eaten meat since time travel. The hidden weapon really made me in the previous life, and it can continue to satisfy me in this life. Tang Sect. Dad, it's time to eat. Even if such a strong fragrance is blocked by the cloth curtain in the inner room, Tang San believes that his father must be able to smell such a strong fragrance, but it is surprising that Tang Heo did not come out this time. According to the logic, it is normal to call his father to eat. Even Mi Xiang's father will come out soon. Why didn't he come out after changing to such a strong meaty fragrance this time? Could it be that Dad is sick? My heart suddenly tightened when I saw Dad entering the inner room just now. His complexion was very bad. Is it possible that he is really thin and sick? Brother G, is Dad sick? Tang San turned around and looked at Fei, who was putting the iron basin on the table, and whispered with a hint of worry, "Ill." Fei was taken aback, and the hot iron basin at the end of his hand stroking his earlobe made him a little surprised. How is it possible? Uncle Tang's body is so strong. He must have fallen asleep. Let's go in and have a look. Let's see. Ever since Fei and Tang San walked in, and when Fei and Tang San walked in, they were surprised to find that Tang Heo was sitting on the edge of the bed, as if he was staring at God. It must be in a deep sleep. It is impossible to sit there, and it looks slightly gloomy, which makes people feel tense. Father? Tang San asked with common sense. As if summoned by Tang San's voice, Tang Heo gradually came to his senses, looked at Tang San and Fei with a little doubt. What did you two do this morning? Hurt? Oh, Dad, I went to exercise with Brother G this morning, and then the two of us went to the mountains, rivers, and moons to hunt and kill a rabbit, and then Brother G's leg was injured by a big dog, and then I ran back quickly. I checked for Brother G, and there is no major problem. You can see that Brother G can walk normally now. Tang San didn't tell Tang Heo that what they encountered was a spirit beast. One reason was not wanting his father to worry about it. The more important reason was the source of the hidden weapon. Really? Tang Heo's eyes fell on Fei intentionally or unintentionally. Fei suddenly felt a cold feeling, as if he was scrutinizing himself, and then Fei suppressed an embarrassed smile. Yes, Uncle Tang, that big monster is so powerful, my little three, and I almost didn't run away. Pass it. N. Tang Heo didn't continue to ask, but nodded subconsciously. Little San, you don't need to continue practicing forging today. You have almost learned it thoroughly during this period of time. Pack up the daily necessities you think you need. Tomorrow old Jack will take you to Notting City. Tang Heo's words were unhurried, but both Fei and Tang San felt a little inexplicable. This? Go to Notting City? Dad, what are we going to Notting City for? Old Jack really did take him and Fei to Notting City once before, saying that it was to let the two little ones become popular in the world. Indeed, the city of Notting is indeed very prosperous, with all kinds of people selling their own things. It's you, not you guys. Fei didn't go to Notting City. Don't you want to become a soul master? Old Jack will take you to Notting City's Junior Soul Master Academy tomorrow, where you will be a work-study student. You can also learn the knowledge you want to learn there. And Fei, I have my own plans. Tang Heo said with a blank face. He didn't seem to want to explain too much for himself, He has his own plan. Everything is a definite number that should be owned for the promise, but also for the future. Why didn't Brother G go? Is there only one place for work-study students? Then I won't go. My Wuhan is blue silver grass and there is no future. Jive has such a wonderful Wuhan and is still full of souls encouraging him to study, is more promising than me, so I'll stay at home with my dad to forge iron. Tang San took a step forward, approached Tang Heo and said seriously. Jifen's complexion became a little ugly. What's going on? The reason for the number of work-study students. Jifen didn't believe that old Jack would not be able to win, so there must be other reasons. Did he keep himself here? Although Tang San said so, it can be seen that his immature face is a little bit unwilling, although he really wants to learn the knowledge of soul masters, so that he may be able to understand his Zuanshan Kung Fu. And is there any relationship between Wuhan and the two? But he doesn't want to leave home alone. Home is a different synonym for him. It is warmth and shelter. Although his life is not very good and his clothes are not very good, but here is his father and his brother. I said I have my own plan. You just go and prepare. Go to Notting City tomorrow. Tang Heo replied decisively. But dad, if I go, no one will cook for you too, and I. Tang San continued to ask. Can Xiao Fei know how to cook? And can't I? You can just go to Notting City to study in peace of mind. Don't be naughty. Either you go, or the two of you will go. Stay at home. Tang Heo simply cut off all subsequent words. Jifei seemed to realize that the situation was becoming more and more awkward, and then he quickly pulled Tang San back, then smiled slightly, and patted Tang San's head. Little San, don't make Uncle Tang angry, you will grow up too. When you grow up, well, it's good for me to stay at home. You go to school and go to school with peace of mind, and my brother forges iron at home to earn living expenses for you, so you can go to school with peace of mind. Eat well, drink well, you know. Tang San saw Jifen's nose sore suddenly. There seemed to be a little tear in his eyes. He hugged Jifen, feeling Jifen's chest. He was speechless for a long time. Tang Heo, who was sitting by the side, saw this scene, and suddenly felt a special emotion in his heart. It seemed that he felt that he had found something to restrain him. Perhaps the weakest thing in people is family affection, right? Okay, please don't let me shed the tears in your eyes. Brother G, although I'm not an open-minded person, I know that you are my younger brother and I'm my elder brother. Uncle Tang, let's go. It's time to eat. We just have delicious rabbit meat today. Let's do it for Xiaozhen. Jifei didn't say too much. Notting City, Soul Master, maybe I really don't deserve it. The power to invalidate my soul power is not so simple. I'm not suitable to be a Soul Master at all, right? But I will naturally not give up, and some things are not so superficial. Tang Heo took a deep look at Jifei, and unexpectedly asked, Xiao Fei, don't you blame Uncle Tang? Old Jack did fight for 2 spots, but Jifei shook his head. How could it be, Uncle Tang? There are many roads leading to life, so I must not hit the south wall, and not look back. And I believe that, if you do this, you must have your own plan. Tang Heo closed his eyes, opened them again after a slight relaxation, then stood up and walked outside. Xing. Excellent. End of this chapter. Chapter 36. A warm farewell meal, running in the early morning. Little San, do you know why I only let you go to Notting City to study alone? On the dining table, the steaming hot rabbit meat exudes a very strong aroma. Jifei, Tang San and Tang Heo each have a lot of rabbit meat in their bowls, and they seem to be eating comfortably, but the atmosphere has become somewhat subtle. Tang San raised his head slowly. He naturally didn't know this, shook his head. Father, I don't know. Jifei didn't say much. He just needs to remember now. Listen more, watch less and talk less. Tang Heo forced a smile from the corner of his mouth. Forget it, it's useless to tell you, but although you can go to Notting College, in Notting City to study, I also want you to agree to what I said as a condition. Father, I promise you. Tang San put down the chopsticks in his hand and stared at Tang Heo very seriously, without any hesitation. On the contrary, Tang Heo frowned slightly. You agreed without even listening to the conditions I said? As a man, how could you agree to other people's requests so easily? Could it be that, if you think it's too much later, Do you still have to break the contract? Tang San didn't refute anything, just replied indifferently, what dad said is definitely for my own good, so no matter what the conditions are, I will agree. Good baby, little San, you are so confused. Fei whispered while biting the rabbit meat in the bowl. Tang Heo was taken aback for a moment. He subconsciously picked up the wine glass on the side. The bitter ale in it had a slight yellow color, and there were traces of floating objects visible to the naked eye that seemed to be gathering below. But when Tang Heo was lost in thought, he again slowly put the glass on the table. No matter how you cultivate your soul power, or release your own power in the future, don't put any soul ring on your second martial soul hammer, and don't even let others see yours. This second martial soul, don't let other people know that you are twin martial souls. Fei, you are the same. Although I warned you before, you must always remember that, even though you are not going to Notting City. Fei nodded subconsciously. He didn't speak. For himself, the magic of the first martial spirit was enough for him to study for a lifetime, but he might not be able to find the real way. The restrictions and dangers of the second martial spirit were all he didn't want. If you want to touch it, maybe there will be a chance in the future. After all, the power attached to the crown of destruction possesses the so-called power to nullify soul power. Then where is my blue silver grass Wuhan? That, isn't it? Tang San asked Tang Heo with some doubts. Blue silver grass, of course. You can apply soul rings and practice at will, but you must remember to protect the blue silver grass in your right hand, even if it is dead. And you must also know that the special point of twin spirits is that they don't it takes two spirits to apply spirit rings before continuing to practice, and only one spirit ring is needed to break through the shackles and enter the next realm of soul masters. Then dad, will I only be able to use blue silver grass in the future? Tang Heo nodded. It's not wrong to say so, but if your life is really in danger, you can use that hammer in a more subtle way. Fei, you are different. Remember what I said, don't show your martial soul in front of others, no matter who it is, including me. If anyone has seen your martial soul, you should kill him. Of course the premise is that you must have this strength yourself. Tang Heo said indifferently. Fei still didn't speak, just thinking to himself. And one last point, no matter what kind of things you encounter in the future, you are not allowed to say that Fei's soul power has reached the 20th level innately, and his destruction martial soul. San, you have to remember that, although San Fei is not your real brother, but you also need to know that once Fei's destructive martial spirit is known to others, no matter who it is, he will be put to death. I don't want you to be the beginning of this thing, understand? Seeing Tang Heo's serious expression, Tang San nodded fiercely. Father, I know. Even if brother G doesn't practice, I will definitely protect him well. Heh. Fei lowered his voice and smiled teasingly. He can practice. Well, let's eat. Tang Heo said lightly. At the dinner table full of undercurrents, Fei didn't say a word. He just jumped out like an outsider. In Notting City, there is Master Uzayao Gang, who will be Tang San's master in the future. Sex speaks for itself. Indeed, on the one hand, Uzayao Gang's theory of soul beasts is indeed unique. It would be nice if Fei could use him to understand the uniqueness of his own martial soul, but in the end he still gave up. His chaos martial spirit is not as simple as it appears on the surface, and following Tang San's side is no longer enough to satisfy Fei. Sacred Soul Village. Fei muttered to himself, will my starting point also become my end point? What does the innate, level soul power mean? It won't be long. The 6-year backlog broke out. Where is there anything to clean up at home? It's hard work for Xiaozhen. The life of a work-study student is already difficult. I don't know what to eat without coins. At this time, Tang San was standing on the forging table, ping pong pong, beating on the iron block. After eating, he didn't pack up his luggage as Tang Heo said that he didn't need to forge today. On the contrary, Fei didn't go to forge. It's time to pack Tang San's luggage. For Fei himself, the main thing he needs to learn is the method of concentrating his soul power and holding his breath. It should be called mind training, which is more correct. Looking at the small burden, Fei thought about whether he should pack a quilt for Xiaozhen. The quilts in the house look tattered. Although there are children, work students and the like who are not aristocrats, it is definitely not comfortable to cover them with one hand. What should I do? There is no change of clothes for Xiaozhen. Alas, it's really difficult. I can't seem to find any coins at home, right? I remember that this world uses soul coins, but it seems that the family doesn't even have copper soul coins. There are not many, alas. It is really difficult. Fei leaned against the table and thought about it. Tang San will leave tomorrow, so he doesn't have time to prepare other things. Do you want coins? I have a lot here. It should mean that you can have as many dills as you want. Suddenly, Douluo's little hand beside her was holding several golden coins and angling in front of Fei's eyes. Fei took a look. Golden soul coins. Douluo, where did this golden soul coin come from? The value of this golden soul coin is immeasurable. It can make us eat steamed rice for a year. Fei looked at the golden soul in Douluo's hand. Coin couldn't help but admire. Douluo said, this is also one of my abilities. Anyway, you just need to know that I have countless gold soul coins. Here you go, as much as you want, I can create them for you. Taking the golden soul coin from Douluo's hand, Fei was a little excited. You are the best. It seems too dangerous to prepare too much for Xiaozhen. Although there are some children not in college, too many golden soul coins you will also be jealous. So prepare 10 first, and ask Grandpa Jack to send the living expenses to the third son from time to time. With a turn of Douluo's little hand, miraculously golden soul coins appeared one after another, and Fei then stuffed them directly into the baggage, prepared for Tang San. Where did Tang San forge? Fei found a piece of paper and a slightly broken pen at home. He wrote a warning on the paper, and stuffed it together with a golden soul coin. Like Tang San, Fei has roughly learned the words and fonts of this world in the past 6 years. Fei also inherited the habit of block letters from his previous life. Although his own strokes in this world are complicated, Fei's writing still square and square, very recognizable. Hey, it looks like this. Even if Xiaozhen has money, I'm afraid he will go to work and study by himself. Forget it. It's up to him to decide what to do with the money for him. It's fine to eat well. Do you want to prepare some for Xiaozhen? What about good forging materials? Fei thought about it. This day passed extremely long. Fei was busy all day, while Tang Hao was sleeping soundly. Regardless of other things, Fei prepared coins for Tang San, and then spent a lot of effort to remind him he activated his martial spirit, and under the technique that Tang San forged, Fei prepared at least a dozen or so fist-sized iron blocks for Tang San, which made chaos feel refreshed. After all, it had been several months. No martial soul manifested. At this moment, Fei was also a little excited looking at the place covered by long black and white hairs floating on his hands. He stood beside the water tank outside the door, staring at himself in the reflection of the water tank. His original teeth did not know. How did it extend a lot? The sinuous teeth seemed terrifying, and the slightly dark eyes showed a spreading beastliness. Worst tooth Tina. Fei just said these words lightly, then looked at the chaos martial soul. The villain still didn't show any expression. Its body was the same as Fei's, covered with traces of black and white hair, and its white teeth protruding, and Fei's movements are also synchronized. Fei smiled slightly, then dispersed his spirit, and turned back into the wooden house. When night fell, Tang Hao went out to drink as usual, holding a few copper soul coins earned by blacksmithing. Watching Fei and Tang San, who were drinking porridge at home, just said a few words for Tang San to learn. When he was young, he could rely on forging and blacksmithing to solve his own living expenses. As for whether Fei would give it to him or not, that was his own business, as long as he didn't starve to death. It is absolutely impossible to starve to death. Little San doesn't need to worry about living expenses. I'll prepare them for you. You should study hard about soul masters. I'll prepare everything for you. You can open it after you arrive at Notting College. Remember, don't worry about it. Let other people see. You wait until you get to Notting City to see what I gave you in my luggage. You can arrange it yourself. The tattered cover at home is uncomfortable, and I also have the beauty of an adult. Tang San was dumbfounded anyway. What is the beauty of an adult? Does the quilt still have the beauty of adults? However, He didn't ask any more questions, but just nodded to show that he knew, and he must remember what Fei said. Brother G, are you really not going to Notting College? Didn't you say that you also want to become a soul master? Tang San subconsciously asked, while looking at Fei, who was eating with his head down. Don't go, it's pretty good at home. Haha, didn't you listen? Uncle Tang said he has plans. You don't have to worry too much. You can just learn by yourself. If you can't learn well, I don't welcome you back. Fei said jokingly. Tang San was taken aback, didn't say anything more, just lowered his head to eat. In the dim candlelight, the two little guys seemed to have completed a heart-to-heart intertwining, but silence is better than sound here. End of this chapter. Chapter 37. The next day early morning, there was a slight cold wind in the forest, and it was still on the hillside outside the Holy Soul village. Fei slightly closed his eyes and sat on the rocks. This was the first time he truly realized the power of nature, and felt there is a feeling of loss in my heart. Little San is leaving. Well, on the side, Tang San's dark purple eyes surged. His resolute expression seemed to be as stable as Mount Tay, and finally turned into an ancient well without waves. The immaturity of the past was no longer found on his face. What was left was only a different kind of growth. Fei felt very happy. He closed his eyes and recalled the life of these years, as if he was just like Tang San, a carefree child who didn't need to think about troubles, didn't need to think about any troubles in life, didn't need to worry about life every day. I have been crushed by indescribable things all day long. All I need to do is open and close my eyes with a slight smile. But he felt a little lonely and asked himself again and again what the meaning of a time traveler was, what kind of path he should take, and whether he would have any chance of regretting it once he took this path. And when Fei was in a daze, Tang San on the side pinched a leaf from the side, slightly bent his two fingers, injecting a strong energy, and instantly bent his two fingers slightly. The leaf immediately moved towards the one that was not so thick trees away. The originally soft leaves made a rustling sound in the air and instantly touched the tree. The originally dry and uneven bark was directly torn apart by the leaves, and then the leaves were firmly embedded in the cracks. Tang San panted slightly. He thought for a while, looked at the key constantly gathering in his hands. The power from his body was constantly impacting himself. This was the subtle power brought to him by Zuanshan Kung Fu. Assimilated. He doesn't know what kind of existence the power of soul power is. He only hopes that he can learn about it in Notting College in Notting City, so that he can truly understand Douluo. What is the relationship between mainland soul power and martial soul? Brother, let's go. Tang San turned his head and looked at Fei with his eyes closed. Brother? Fei opened his eyes, his body trembling slightly, looking at Tang San's firm eyes. He didn't say much, just nodded and then stood up. Let's go home. Ah. This time Tang San didn't just stand on tiptoe and quickly fall down the mountain. This time he chose to do the same as Fei, slowly put his feet on his hands and fell down from the hillside slowly. Fei and Tang San spent almost half an hour. When Fei really landed steadily on the ground, he gasped heavily. His fair complexion turned rosy, while Tang San on the side seemed to be okay, just looking around, as if he had a feeling of keeping something. Don't look. Grandpa Jack will come to pick you up in a while, and when you come back from school, no one will care about you every day. Fei smiled lightly, and then walked towards the wooden house. Tang San nodded. He clenched his little fists tightly. At this moment he made up his mind that he must become a soul master. He must let Brother G and Dad live a good life, and eat rabbit meat every day. The two little guys were walking on the small flat road. This time Fei walked faster than before, while Tang San was many times slower than before. He looked at the mountains in the distance, looked at the nearby the road ahead, all the familiar surroundings, and Fei who was walking ahead. Cooking smoke slowly floated up into the sky in the familiar wooden house, and a delicate aroma of porridge wafted out of the house. This was prepared by Tang San early in the morning. The fire was still set by Fei. It was what Fei stayed up all night. Little San, Grandpa is here to pick you up. Not long after Fei and Tang San returned home, old Jack's voice rang outside the door, and then the two of them saw old Jack in new clothes, with a very vigorous hairstyle, slowly walking in. Looking at the two little guys who were familiar with everything in the house, old Jack looked at Ji-Fei helplessly. Fei, Grandpa. Ji-Fei smiled slightly. Uncle Tang told me everything. Thank you Grandpa Jack for getting me a place, but I don't seem to be able to go to Notting College to study. I will forge iron and forge farm tools for the people in the village at home, but Xiaozhen is very promising, and I also believe that Xiaozhen will be able to return from his studies at Notting College and become a soul master respected by people. Well, Tang Heo is also really stubborn. Since he let Xiaozhen go, why didn't he let you go? I asked him the reason that day, and he kept saying that he had his own plans and didn't want me to meddle. This can be called meddling. Obviously your talent is also excellent. I don't know how long since Lord Hunsheng has accumulated blessings to have you two little dolls in my holy soul village. Old Jack couldn't help admiring Road. Grandpa Jack is serious. We are just lucky. There is no blessing. Well, it is getting late. You should take Xiaozhen to Notting City as soon as possible. Way to go. Ji-Fei reminded. With that said, Ji-Fei turned around again, picked up two bulging bags from the table at the side, and handed them to Tang San. Xiao-san, this is the luggage I prepared for you. Remember what I told you yesterday, don't forget. Tang San took the burden. One was still relatively light, while the other was extraordinarily heavy. He was a little puzzled. How could such a small burden have such a weight? But Ji-Fei said that he can only call after arriving at Notting College, and don't let other people see this heavy burden. I got it, brother. Tang San nodded. Father, please take care of me, brother, when I come back from studying. Haha, that's for sure. Uncle Tang can be regarded as my adoptive father. Take good care of yourself, learn well, and eat whatever you want. Don't be too stingy with yourself. There are things I prepared for you in that package. Just make up your own mind. Tang San glanced at the other lighter burden and also nodded. I see. Brother, I'll leave a message for Dad. Suddenly, Tang San turned around and walked towards the inner room. A sentence was outlined in vague handwriting on the torn paper and a broken pen. Ji-Fei didn't say anything. He didn't look. He just looked at Tang San, just looking at it lightly, starting the pen and finishing the word. Tang San took up the two burdens again. He took a deep look at Ji-Fei. This time he didn't say anything more and walked out the door straight away, while old Jack looked at Ji-Fei. Glancing at Ji-Fei, Xiao-Fei, why don't you come and see off Xiaozhen with me? According to the distance, we should be able to come back in the afternoon. Ji-Fei didn't agree. He just shook his head. Let Xiaozhen really grow up. Old Jack looked at Ji-Fei in surprise. His old eyes were full of tears. You are a good boy. You can see more clearly than anyone else. After finishing speaking, old Jack also turned around and walked outside. Only Ji-Fei was left in the room. He stared at the two figures that gradually elongated and finally disappeared on the long road outside the door and sighed slightly. Then he turned around and sat beside the table, lowering his head, wondering what he was thinking about. In the inner room, Tang Heo's eyes stared at Tang San and old Jack, who were gradually disappearing, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He moved his steps slowly, then opened the curtain, looked at Ji-Fei, who was sitting beside the table in a daze. Then he turned and walked towards where Tang San left the note. The faint handwriting on the curled paper was a bit crooked, but one could make out what the content was. End of this chapter. Chapter 38. Starting today, this is your daily exercise task. Dad, Grandpa Jack and I are gone, and I'm very relieved that Brother G is at home. Although it is a pity that I couldn't go to Notting College with Brother G to study. I know that Dad must have Dad's difficulties and ideas. Dad, I will always keep in mind what I said to me, and Brother G is usually not very good at cooking. Dad, don't be too decadent all the time. Help Brother G cook and so on. And Dad should drink less bars. It's not good for your health. The porridge I made with Brother G in the morning is still hot in the pot. You two must drink it. Dad, Brother G, wait for me when I come back. Tang Heo's eyes were fixed on the writing on the curled paper, and suddenly his thick hand slightly squeezed the paper up, and then looked at Ji-Fei, who was sitting by the table. Xiao-Fei, come and eat. Ji-Fei was taken aback by the unexpected shouting. He looked at Tang Heo, only to see Tang Heo directly raised his hand to pick up the pot from the stove, then turned around and put it directly on the table. He took another bowl and chopsticks, handed one to Jifei, and filled a bowl of rice himself, took the empty bowl from Jifei's hand, and filled it up. Jifei was a little taken aback, thinking to himself, what's wrong? On weekdays, Tang Heo would only eat rice until the bowl was in front of him, but today he actually gave himself a meal. Why do you feel a little flustered in your heart? Gudu. Gudu. The rice was very hot, and Jifei could feel it when he touched the bowl, but Tang Heo couldn't help saying that he just raised his head and drank the full bowl of rice, which completely frightened Jifei. Uncle Tang, it's hot. Tang Heo ignored Jifei's reminder. Instead he directly picked up the pot, raised his head to the side of the pot, and drank it in big gulps. A trace of white porridge flowed out from the corner of his mouth, dripping onto Tang Heo's body. Heo's torn clothes. Jifei subconsciously opened his mouth, looked at his small bowl of rice, then at the pot that was almost as big as his. The gap between the two. After a while, Tang Heo slowly put down the iron pot. Jifei looked at Tang Heo's eyes with a faint watery charm, and he was also a little relieved. It seemed that, even if he was as strong as Tang Heo, he still had such deep affection for his son. When Xiao Fei, do you know why I don't let you go to the academy to study? Tang Heo raised his sleeve to wipe the porridge soup flowing from the corner of his mouth. Jifei asked tentatively, are you afraid that my second martial spirit will be discovered by others? Jifei could think of a lot of reasons, but it's better not to mention those reasons, because they are selfish, otherwise he doesn't know what Tang Heo will think of him. Anyway, he is better than asking 3 questions. Tang Heo said indifferently, yes and no. If Xiaozhen is a genius in my eyes, then you are a genius dazzling enough to make everyone jealous in my eyes. Jifei didn't know what these words meant, so he seemed a little dazed. Tang Heo suddenly smiled. Let's not talk about your second martial soul for now. Do you think you can hide the power of your first martial soul from me? World Tooth Hyena? Shall we go deeper and let you release it? How about your Vortex Hyena martial spirit? Jifei smiled awkwardly. He knew that, sure enough, Tang Heo was there when Shin Heoxia encountered a soul beast that day. The reason why he didn't choose to make a strong move was because of this. The matter of the soul is due to his own cleverness, but from another perspective, Jifei is indeed trying the power of the number 1 martial soul. Uncle Tang, I didn't hide it on purpose. I just tried my first martial spirit, and didn't you see it? It's really embarrassing for my soul power to be nullified. It will appear from time to time, and it's always when I'm in danger. Jifei shook his head bitterly. Tang Heo said, the power of your first martial soul can not only improve attributes, but also transform it into a martial soul through simulated soul power. I'm not wrong about this, right? And the simulated martial soul has the same power as the actual martial soul. It is exactly the same, but it is destined that the factor that the martial soul can release the power lies in you. Your first martial soul can change the power of the martial soul through the blessing of soul power, which can be regarded as a display of an intermediary body, and you only need to control you. Is your Wuhan villain okay? Jifei didn't hide it this time, but he still didn't understand some things during this period of time. Uncle Tang, what you said is similar, but I haven't fully used it. I always feel that my hands are bound. I feel that I have no self-protection ability at all, and there are disadvantages such as the invalidation of soul power. Even if I can add beast spirits such as Vortexianus, it is useless, because time not allowed. Tang Heo sat on the chair. Jifei also sat down, and then said softly, actually, you don't have to hide this from me. Maybe you feel that you are not my own child. Maybe you also started from what I said, that day I will kill you, and feel the crisis. But you have to remember, you and Xiaozhen are the ones I grew up with, and I said I would kill you. But how can I bear it? So I need you all the time, bearing in mind that you are not allowed to use the second martial soul. But if you really encountered the situation of life and death, wouldn't you seize this chance? You have to think about it yourself. Let me tell you this, if you want to become a soul master, going to those academies is of no use. You also know that your own innate soul power has reached level, but the invalidation of your soul power is based on the limit of your second martial soul, and I can tell you in charge that there are not many people left who know about your second martial soul on the whole continent. Those who know are either dead or selective. Forgot. Will the powerful martial soul be forgotten? Fei muttered to himself. Eternal love sometimes ends, so does Wuhan. Tang Heo said. Okay, Fei, tell Uncle Tang seriously, do you really want to become a soul master? Tang Heo's expression was very serious. This was a time when Fei didn't see him very often. He didn't hesitate this time either. He just nodded and said, think. Tang Heo stood up and stroked Fei's head. Yes, you should choose your own path after all. I can't choose for you, but I will help you walk on the right path. Fei was obviously puzzled by Tang Heo's words, but at this moment, he suddenly felt that the feeling of restlessness and crisis in his heart seemed to disappear, and he was filled with the subtle gratitude of Tang Heo's hand stroking his head. In Fei's mind, 1 year, there is only 1 year. During this year, you must learn to control the power of invalidating soul power as you like, but this is not for you to use the second martial soul to practice. I will really teach you the method. As for whether you can succeed or not depends on yourself. Fei was a little excited. Uncle Tang, do you mean that you teach me the knowledge of soul masters yourself? Are you going to be my master? Tang Heo shook his head when he heard the words. No, I can be your master. I just teach you some basic things, and I will take you to some places after a year, and then you have to be mentally prepared to accept it. Some things, you know. Although you are only 6 years old, you have to remember that you are the child of that person. The trajectory of your growth and your existence will be another kind of destruction for the entire continent. It's cloudy words again. But who is my father? Fei secretly thought, but thinking about the power that Professor Tang Heo has become a soul master in his heart, he couldn't help but become even more excited in his heart. Fei, I also need you to promise me a few conditions, no matter what you have to do in the future, okay? End of this chapter. Chapter 39 Harsh. Fei didn't say a word, so he naturally wouldn't agree directly like Tang San. Let's not talk about breaking the oath or not. Just looking at Tang Heo's dignified appearance, Fei can deduce that this is absolutely true. It won't be an easy thing, and it might even be a little harsh. Tang Heo said, the first condition is that no matter how far you become a soul master in the future, or how far you go on this road of soul master, you must be dedicated to goodness. You can judge the good and evil in your heart, but you can't tell right from wrong. Second point, I teach you how to gather soul power, but I'm not your master. In the future, if other people ask you who you studied under, you are not allowed to say that I taught you. You need to remember this. The third point is still the same as before. Unless you are in a life or death situation, you absolutely cannot use your second martial spirit, and don't even use it in front of people. Once you use it, the enemy will kill it, and your friends will hide it. After all, this second martial spirit doesn't know much. The fourth point, if you say this, you may feel that I'm a little selfish. Seeing Tang Heo's hesitation, Fei was also a little puzzled. Uncle Tang, just say what you want. Yeah. Tang Heo nodded. In the future, what I'm talking about is if Xiaozhen encounters any danger in the future, you should help him. Not many times. 3 times is enough, whether it's helping or forgiving. 3 times. Okay. Fei couldn't help but heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the words. Uncle Tang, what are you talking about? Xiaozhen is my younger brother. If he encounters any difficulties and dangers, I will do my best regardless of my own strength to protect him. Fei originally thought that Tang Heo would make some even more outrageous demands, but after thinking about it carefully, what kind of danger would an existence like Tang San encounter, and would need his own help? Existence. Don't be too assertive. I just ask you to help Xiaozhen, and you don't want to wrong yourself too much. After all. Tang Heo shook his head. Okay, that's all I ask for the time being. From tomorrow onwards you will start to receive my training. This process will be very boring and tormenting. Are you ready? Why isn't Fei ready? What about training suffering? As long as he can no longer be disturbed by the invalidation of soul power, no matter how much suffering he suffers, He won't complain even the slightest bit. Luo Dalu's vast world and all the customs, but he can make up for his own shortcomings during this period of time, which is the most exciting. 1 year. You only have 1 year. Xiaozhen will not come back for a while. I also have my own things to do. Let me witness your growth. Uphold your own heart. Don't think too much things. You are still young. You will accept some things slowly in the future. After speaking, Tang Heo turned around. Do you have money with you? Don't say no. I naturally know the things you prepared for Xiaozhen. Yes, go. You go to the small markets in several nearby villages to buy something. These things are what you need for your cultivation tomorrow, and there will be everything in those small markets. Fei smiled awkwardly and patted his head. It seems that nothing can be hidden from Uncle Tang. I don't want Xiaozhen to have a better life in the college, and I don't have good food or clothing at home. What? But when you go out, Xiaozhen is also very good at budgeting, and I don't know if I will spend it. You boy, well, Xiaozhen has his own plans, so don't bother him. You practice your own, and after a year, it depends on the results of your cultivation. If you succeed, I will naturally take you to hunt the soul beasts who have obtained the soul ring. Don't worry about my strength. You don't need to guess my strength if you can't see through it. Tang Heo waved his hand and signaled Fei to go to the market to prepare things. Chao shall. On the crumpled paper, Tang Heo wrote the nouns of several items with a wave of his hand. Fei took it and glanced at these nouns with a little doubt, then turned around and walked out with a slightly thoughtful expression. What does these things have to do with cultivation? Forget it. Let's go buy it. The small market nearby is not far away. Go early and return early. These things are not light, and you have to hire a carriage to pull them back. Luo, come and get me a piece. Gold soul coins. No, silver soul coins. The value of gold soul coins is too high. You can't find them in the small market at all. Clap la la. The scale of the Holy Soul village is actually not that big. Fei walked out after a while. The nearest small market is not far from the junction of Yamaha village and Soul Emperor village. These two small villages are combined. It's about the size of 1.5 Holy Soul villages. Compared with the transportation location of Holy Soul village, the location of the two villages is better. The economy is naturally very developed. Although there may not be powerful soul masters, there are many more. There are very few people with soul power. It's quite funny to say, Soul Emperor village, Soul Saint village. Haha, it seems that they all believe in the powerful soul masters who went out of their own villages, but this can be regarded as a kind of sustenance from the spirit. It is better to be poor than to have no faith. Yamaha, there seems to be a fish named Damaha. It is timid and good at living in groups, but it is bold when gathered together. The footsteps were fairly fast, and Fei arrived at the so-called market, where several villages were handed over in less than an hour. It's not the first time Fei has come here, but he doesn't come here often. In the past, he would come here with Tang San to buy daily rice or some dry vegetables. After all, such vegetables are very cheap and enough his stomach was full, and Tang Heo came here to buy the cheapest bitter ale from the tavern called United Restaurant. 100 wine jars. Fei looked at the first item on the crumpled paper. Then should I buy wine? Or an empty jar? The wine jar at home is just a small jar. Uncle Tang has used it for at least several years. Then naturally, this first wine jar must be an empty wine jar. Yes, Uncle Tang will not let me buy this much wine with a jar. Standing at the entrance of the bazaar, there was an endless stream of hawkers all around. The people around were almost all poor people wearing patches. Their sallow complexions looked malnourished. Compared with Fei's fair skin, it can be said that it is a bit out of place. Hot ball. Hot ball. I remember seeing it when I was hanging out with Xiaozhen before. It is very similar to the balloon in the previous life. It is made of a special kind of glue made of bark and then made into a ball-shaped device. It floats in the air, and because it is made of special bark glue, it is much stronger than those balloons in terms of hardness. Wooden float. Is it a ball again? This seems to be a wooden ball that is used to catch fish and put it into the net. What is the purpose of buying it? Is it to catch fish? The one near the mountain, river, and moon is indeed there is indeed a long river, but a large waterfall separates the two sections, and almost no one goes to such a dangerous place. The rest of the things are almost daily necessities. They don't look special. Thick thread can be used for sewing and mending. Then what are these gloves used for? Protective equipment when blacksmithing, is it? I haven't seen Uncle Tang use it before, and Uncle Tang said that these things are related to my cultivation. So what is the relationship between them? It seems that there is no connection at all. Fei didn't go into it anymore. He bought it back, and he'll know tomorrow. Anyway, there's no shortage of money, so it doesn't matter how much we buy some more food, right? Hehe. Although the small market has a small character, it is like a group of sparrows that are small and complete, and there are quite a lot of things in it. End of this chapter. Chapter 40. Mr. Jack 039's Martial Soul. Notting City. Notting City and Holy Soul Village are actually not very far apart. Tang San and old Jack walked for almost half a day to arrive, and the two of them also took a rest for a while to eat some dry food on the way. Notting City is not considered a big city in the entire province of Fasno, but its prosperity is by no means comparable to the market that Fei visits. Divine soldiers generally guard this exquisite city on the border of the Heaven Da Empire. Little San, do you know why your father doesn't let Fei come here to study with you? Think about Fei's aptitude is also very good. Book-like martial arts, although the innate soul power is 0, as long as you practicing hard can definitely become a respected soul master. Fei seems to want to come too, but that guy Tang Hao is really hateful. Isn't he worried about Fei's future? Old Jack was walking on the street, and there was no extremely noisy hawking around. The rare stores were filled with items for sale, and those who seemed to be small merchants were dressed in very decent clothes, and they looked promising. Ding Chengxiang, who is also rich. Tang San carried the heavy burden in one hand and put the other in his bosom. He looked at the kind old Jack and said slowly, I don't know, although dad doesn't seem to ask me and brother G, but once dad decides something, no one can make him change it. Brother G seems to know the reason, but he didn't tell me. Old Jack sighed. Oh, I'm old. This time we can walk out of a real soul master from Saint Soul Village. Even if I die, I will rest in peace. Little San, after sending you to Notting College, Grandpa will leave and return to Holy Soul Village. When you are alone in the college, you must be obedient and don't leave school without authorization. You must think carefully before doing anything. Don't worry, will there be any irreversible consequences after doing this thing yourself? Although I don't like your father, I still like Fei very much. I will take care of your alcoholic father, by the way. Don't worry about studying at Notting College, and wait until the end of this year's semester when Grandpa Jack will come to pick you up, and it will be almost Chinese New Year at that time, so you can go home and have a reunion dinner. Tang San suddenly thought of his father and brother G at home, and his young heart suddenly felt a little throbbing. Although his sanity is dozens of years old, after all, he is only a 6-year-old child now. Are you leaving so soon? Tang San asked. Old Jack smiled helplessly. Otherwise, the hotels in this city are not affordable for people like us. Although everyone has a martial soul, there is still a distinction between high and low. San, if you encounter such injustice, then you have to work hard to cultivate and strive for your family to make rapid progress on the road of soul masters. Tang San nodded subconsciously. He seemed to have imagined how wonderful it would be when he and his father and brother G really lived a good life in the future. Notting College. Old Jack led Tang San round and finally arrived in front of Notting College. The green plants on both sides of Notting College are really nothing to say. The undercurrent green leaves are layered together, the breeze blows gently, and the slight rustling sound of the swaying branches sounds very pleasant. In the distance, at the end of the road, a towering arch with a width of more than 20 meters and a length of more than 10 meters appeared in front of Tang San's eyes. He was a little excited, and he could clearly see the surrounding buildings through the surroundings. Those high-rise buildings should be teaching buildings, right? What a grand look. Notting College. The 4 big characters deeply outlined on the plaque appeared in front of Tang San's eyes. What are you doing? Don't you know what this place is? Is this a place where you countrymen can set foot? Go quickly. When Tang San and old Jack had just walked to the gate of Notting College, they were stopped by the gatekeeper. His eyes had a slightly contemptuous expression. Although the clothes that old Jack was wearing at this moment it is clean, but there are some wrinkles and a rough texture. But in the eyes of this young man, this is synonymous with poor country people. Old Jack was not angry because of this. Little brother, we are from Saint Soul Village. These are work-study students sent by our village this year. There were originally 2 of them, but now we can only come to 1. Do you think so? Are there any other procedures that need to be done? I've seen beggars, I've seen people pretending to be pitiful, and it's really the first time I've seen a student pretending to be a work student, and only one of the 2 work students can come. Old man, you're quite old to write. How can this cowhide be blown so loudly? How can you produce a soul master in this shabby holy soul village? 2 at a time. It's really a joke. The young man looked at old Jack with disdain. He really wanted to turn a chicken into a phoenix and still have 2 places for work-study students. You are really bragging. You don't even write drafts. Old Jack hastily took out 2 pieces of paper from his pocket, looked at them, held one of them in front of the young man's eyes, and then put the other in his pocket. Don't say 2 pieces of paper. Well, this is the certificate issued by this child's spirit hall. You have to believe it, right? The young man glanced at it contemptuously. Blue silver grass? You are born full of soul power. This is really the funniest joke I have ever seen in my life, and this proof must have been faked by you, a bad old man. The one who came out is really bold, and I'm not afraid of being skinned and cramped by the Hall of Spirits if it finds out. Get the hell out of here and go back to your trash holy soul village. Don't come out and show yourself. What did you say? You said that our holy soul village is a garbage holy soul village? You also said that we forged certificates? Okay. Zayazan, let's go. Let's go to Wuhan Temple to find Master Suyun Teo and ask him to report to the upper level adults. This guard has slandered us. We will see who is right or wrong when the time comes. Hearing this, the guard was a little surprised, but he wasn't afraid at all. Anyway, there have been no work-study students for several years. Who hasn't lost his eye? Seeing that old Jack was pulling Tang San to leave, he still said contemptuously outside the door, "Stinky beggars in Beggar Village. Bah. You. How dare you tarnish the reputation of our holy soul village. Even if I risk my old life today, I will make you kneel down and admit your mistakes." Old Jack suddenly dropped Tang San's hand, and then a light yellow halo appeared on his body, and 2 orange strips suddenly appeared on his hand. Tang San's eyes caught it very quickly. He opened his purple demon eyes, and it was obvious that several carrots appeared in old Jack's hand. The sluggish and dry carrot looks like old Jack is getting old, and it seems that it will disappear immediately with a light touch. But it's really a wonderful martial soul. But I don't know what level of old Jack's innate soul power is. It seems that they don't even have the first soul ring, so naturally there is no 10th level. Is this Grandpa Jack's martial soul? It's actually a carrot. But to feel Grandpa Jack's internal power, no, it's soul power. It doesn't seem to be much. Old Jack's dizzy eyes stared at the young guard, and then he couldn't help but throw carrots at the young guard one after another, as if he didn't want money, but he could clearly see the messy carrots. Hitting the young guard's body was like strips of cotton, and it couldn't cause any real damage at all. To put it bluntly, it was like playing a house. And in an instant, the guard seemed to be annoyed. How dare a bad old man with a broken carrot Wuhan run rampant here? Although my martial soul is a dog's tail grass, I can completely abuse you with this strong body. United Restaurants. With the fluttering flags and the strong aroma of wine, Fei then stopped and looked at the tables lined up all around, and there were many people drinking dirty wine beside the tables. 100 wine jars, and then a pot of good wine for Uncle Tang. Anyway, he will hire a carriage to go home, so it doesn't matter if you buy more, since there are a lot of silver soul coins anyway. End of this chapter. Chapter 41 GFEIN-039 S Daily Cultivation Essence of Soul Power. Uncle Tang, where are we going? Don't we want to practice with the things I bought? Why did we come out empty-handed? Fei looked around. This is the depths of the mountains, rivers, and moons outside the Holy Soul Village. Fei can conclude that there are as many dangers in it, and as he goes deeper, He can also feel a constant palpitation release it, as if the auras that emanate are defending their territory independently. Yesterday Ji-Fei brought back all the things that Tang Heo wrote for him to prepare. There were as many as the carriage, and the 100 wine jars accounted for more than half of them. Ji-Fei even bought the 100 wine jars specially. The strongest and most durable ones are specially fired with a texture similar to ceramics. Anyway, Ji-Fei can be sure that, if he buys it once, he will never have to buy it again. Ji-Fei ate a lot this morning, and bought a lot of food and vegetables and meat by the way yesterday. With the guarantee of Douluo logistics, the food can also be improved in an all-round way. Alas, every time it comes to this time, Ji-Fei feels a little bit. I started to sigh. Why didn't I meet Douluo earlier? After eating early this morning, no, Ji-Fei followed Tang Heo and came here. Tang Heo seemed to have regained his usual indifference in an instant. He was walking ahead, and all the leaves around him rubbed together. Deo cooing and roaring animal sounds seemed to not reach his ears. Cultivation, the place where you practice from now on, will be in the mountains, rivers, and moons. In the first stage, you can be more comfortable. Of course, after passing through your first stage, you will really imagine what purgatory is. There aren't any powerful soul beasts around the slope, just some 10-year-old soul beasts, and they only appear in the deepest part, and what we are going to is a rare place. Tang Heo was walking in front. His heavy footsteps stepped on the branches and the layers of leaves, and sunk into huge pits one after another. He looked straight at the destination he said in the distance. Full. Ji-Fei was taken aback for a moment, and he watched the rapids and turbulent waterfalls in the distance splash one after another, and the layers of rapids swallowed the surrounding stone banks. The line of defense. I'm afraid that once the granite collapses and wears away, the water that washes up will immediately flow for thousands of miles. Those things you bought are what you need in the second stage. What do you feel is the most important thing for you now? The answer is self-evident, Ji-Fei replied. To control the soul power. Only after I can really control the soul power can I use the martial soul as I like, a normal soul master without any restrictions. Tang Heo didn't look back, he just continued to walk forward. It seems that you know a lot, kid. I thought you also knew that you need to solve the invalidation of your soul power. Then let me let you guess. How will I let you cultivate? Looking at the surrounding environment and the things I asked you to buy, you can roughly guess the specific process? Ji-Fei was taken aback. Uncle Tang, you are just joking. Although I understand a little bit, I'm not the kind of person who fully implements it. You also said that I'm still young, and I'm very much looking forward to witnessing my growth training process. Don't worry, I won't disappoint you, kid. During this time, to be precise, I will let you know what life is short and life is unpredictable. I advise you not to treat me as a relative, otherwise you will hate me to death. Hearing Tang Heo's words, Ji-Fei smiled slightly. What Uncle Tang said today was really a bit of a joke. Uncle Tang is Uncle Tang, and the training is constantly helping me grow. How can there be resentment or not? I hope so. As soon as the words fell, Ji-Fei saw Tang Heo, who was not far away, stop his progress. His eyes were slightly cold, and he looked at the waterfalls flying down all around him, and the powerful force hitting his heart continued to follow. In an instant, people are inadvertently feeling the beauty of nature and the uncanny workmanship of nature. This kind of power is absolutely formidable enough to make people awe-inspiring. There are so many towering trees around. It is like two places from the outside world. When you first entered the mountains, rivers, and moons, this place is absolutely into shade. The air is humid to sultry, and a person feels a bit uncomfortable, even if he takes a little breath. Fortunately, the dense leaves block the poisonous sunlight from above. Here we are, Tang Heo said. It's here. Ji-Fei looked around at the dense forests and rocky waterfalls suspiciously. Uncle Tang, how did you present the first stage of cultivation that you mentioned? Tang Heo doesn't seem to want to explain too many things that have nothing to do with cultivation. He stared at Ji-Fei closely. We will start the formal training now, but before starting the formal training, I would like to ask you a few questions about soul masters and soul power. Of course, I can't answer, but my most fundamental purpose is not for you to answer completely, but to see how much you understand. I don't like going around, even if it's for you to practice, as long as you want. If you want to become stronger, then choose to complete the training task I gave you unconditionally. Soul power, a synonym for power, and then it can stimulate a person's martial soul to fight. According to the accumulated practice, it can be upgraded slowly, so that it can reach a higher level of existence. Fei felt that his narration was almost inseparable, right? Although I don't know that much, my general understanding should be like this, and the rest of the hype can't escape this principle, right? Tang said, that's right. Soul power is the embodiment of a special energy that communicates with the world when the soul master urges the martial soul to fight, and this is true of soul power regardless of whether it is positive or negative, good or bad. Tang put a finger deep and then said to Fei, the source of a person's soul power is generally said to be directly drawn from the world, and what is the intermediary? Martial soul? Obviously this is possible, but it is not all. It should be said that it comes from every person's body. All parts of the body, even any vascular pores and muscles can continue to absorb. Tang then stretched out a second finger and continued. The second form of construction, as you said, what a soul master can achieve after a long period of time is the improvement of ability and soul master level, but you have to remember that what they ultimately improve is their own huge soul power storage container. What can this container be generalized for? Tang pointed to the brain, as if he wanted Fei to answer. Spiritual power. Fei tentatively replied. That's right, you're very smart. That's spiritual power. Martial soul is a manifestation of will, so if your own soul power wants to reach a consensus with martial soul, then you need strong spiritual power to completely dominate them, and what you encounter now is that two uncoordinated soul powers and uncoordinated mental powers are competing in your body container, and no one is willing to take the initiative to retreat. The way I taught you to relieve it through forging can be said to be to a certain extent, pour out the power of mental control, instill most of your energy on the soul brain of your hands, so that it can be regarded as reaching an exquisite balanced state. Fei was a little dazed. He is not a genius who understands the type, and the book titles that he memorized by rote are completely like a book without words. He touched his head, and Fei was a little embarrassed. Uncle Tang, these things are so complicated. Although I can understand so much, but you still come to teach me directly. If you listen to a lot, it's better to be familiar with the ears than to be able to use your body freely. Tang shook his head. What I told you is just the foundation of my understanding. The way of soul masters is extremely profound and unique. I want you to flexibly use your own polarized soul power. Don't let them confront each other, but direct one-sidedness. What is one-sidedness? How is it one-sidedness? I won't tell you for the time being. This also requires you to comprehend it by yourself. Imagine you don't want to block the power that prevents your soul power from being invalidated. Treat it as a force you are familiar with, and treat it as a foreign force. Power. Let your body's 20 level soul power annihilate it. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 GFEIN-039 S Daily Cultivation Soul Power Tides. Your talent is unquestionable, and your innate soul power exceeds the common senseful soul power 10th level, but the only thing you lack and need to practice is real control. Fei, if you can really do what I expect, if you gather the heads of hundreds of schools, you will be a new star leading the world of soul masters in the future. But, as soon as the words fell, Tang originally slightly stretched face suddenly froze, looking very stiff, giving people the feeling of King Kong's angry eyes. A lot of soul power and a high level of soul power are actually not enough for you, just to add more constraints. Now the pros and cons cannot be distinguished. Only when you truly feel the release of your powerful soul power can you achieve real growth. You should have felt that your own soul power consumption should account for half or even 2/3 of your soul power when you released your martial soul, right? And the source of your extra soul power is because your innate soul power has reached the terrifying 20th level. This is a very important reason. Let me tell you this, if your own soul power is only at level 10, then it's a pity to say that your own martial spirit may not be able to release it. So the 20 level innate full soul power is a kind of compensation and a different kind of gift for you. But the shortcomings are also extremely obvious. The leakage of your own soul power will be completely different from the manifestation of the power and combat effectiveness of your own martial soul release. It can even be said that when you are fighting with other people, like them, you release your martial soul together, and the release of other people's soul power is like a trickle, and your own soul power comes up directly, and then you directly become a soulless person who just released the martial soul. The existence of power. Tang Heo's words were very important to Fei. He did think of a lot. The power he consumed when he used his soul power seemed to be much thinner. Such an amount might be a kind of exhaustion value for him. After all, his concept of soul power still seems to be so vague. Then Uncle Tang, what kind of method should I use to exercise, which can not only solve the problem of invalidating my soul power, but also keep my own soul power from leaking out and wasting too much at once? Fei was a little excited. Although he couldn't understand all of Tang Heo's words, he was able to understand some passages that echoed his own situation. Therefore, Fei can now conclude that the mysterious cultivation method Tang Heo said is absolutely true, can help yourself. Well, when it comes to the cultivation method you need to understand a new term. Tang Heo said. A new term? Fei looked at Tang Heo in confusion. This new term is called physical memory. From the literal meaning, you should be able to roughly know the cultivation method represented by these 4 words, right? Just like forging iron, when you have the idea of forging iron in your mind, you will automatically pick up the forging hammer and raise your hand against the iron block or forged object. Although this seems to be an attempt, isn't it a series of repeated physical memories? Physical memory? Hearing Tang Heo's explanation, Fei's face suddenly became a little weird. As a new era traveler, how could he not understand the meaning of these 4 words? It seems more appropriate to use the other 3 words to replace physical memory. Which 3 words? Reflex arc. Yes, if the reflex arc, brought about by pain, is used as a metaphor for the series of movements that Wuhan uses to mobilize the soul power, it is definitely the most appropriate synonym. Pain will be remembered, remembering will be able to adapt, adapting will be dodging. Only dodging can change the original vicious circle and form a new virtuous circle. The physical memory you need to form is just a process of operating your own soul power and releasing your soul power. It seems that I have explained some methods, but when it comes down to it, all you need to pay is not afraid of hardship or tiredness. For the rest, it is better for you to comprehend by yourself than everything else. Fei touched his head in embarrassment. Then, Uncle Tang, tell me what this method of cultivation is first. Can't you just tell me the outline and let me comprehend the rest? Then don't talk about it for a year. I'm afraid I won't be able to comprehend it for a few years. Tang Heo shook his head. The method is very simple. 2 words. Which 2 words? Sing and dance. The corners of Fei's mouth twitched. Climbing trees. Tang Heo said plainly, and very plainly, as if this cultivation method was something he had studied for a long time, and could definitely solve all the problems Fei needed. Climb a tree. Fei felt stupid for a moment. What kind of cultivation method is this? Before, I was able to release the martial soul only by temporarily forging it. At the beginning, I was able to release the martial soul by holding a hammer, but now I can climb trees. Hiss. Is it difficult? Do you want to put a tree on the field before the battle? What does it look like? Can't think, can't imagine everything. Climbing trees, summoning martial arts. If you think about using your own hands to climb trees, then you are very wrong. The tree climbing I'm talking about does not allow you to use your hands to climb trees. Tang Heo said calmly. Such indifference is extremely calm, as if climbing a tree without hands is as simple as ordinary people drinking water and walking. Climb a tree without hands? Don't people always say that you can do it if you have hands? How can you climb a tree without hands? Do you need to use the power of double praise? But before Fei could imagine it, Tang Heo walked straight towards a big tree in front of him, without too many movements or fancy tricks, and Tang Heo just kept his feet firmly on the ground. He landed obliquely on the big tree, moved his feet, and then walked steadily towards the tree. But in the blink of an eye, Tang Heo was already hanging upside down on the treetop, and his huge body was actually standing upside down on the treetop, which was no thicker than a finger. Fei raised his head, looked at Tang Heo with very messy eyes, swallowed his saliva subconsciously, wishing he could wipe his eyes, and thought to himself, could this be the legendary lightness kung fu? Xianzhen's ghost shadow fascination can do it. Is it like this? Don't feel that you are simply climbing trees without using your hands. Although this kind of power is nothing to a soul master, it is very suitable for an existence like you with uneven distribution of soul power and serious soul power spillover. The distribution of soul power will never be such a problem for ordinary people, because they only have one martial soul and there will be no differences, and the twin martial souls will not have such a huge difference like you. The soul comes out of the body. Go along with the master's will, but your second martial spirit is different. The feeling of freedom? Fei couldn't help teasing. In fact, Fei understood in his heart what kind of existence is the purpose of this kind of training method. It is very simple. Gathering and maintaining soul power, and gathering it on the feet, is a big difficulty. Ordinary soul power forms a complete Zaoshan cycle when it is running by itself. This cycle will bring soul power to all parts of the body, but only on the feet. Although soul power is also involved to some extent, the soul power gathered and circulated here is basically taken away, or even left untouched, so the feet can also be called the barren area of soul power. Tang Heo's reason for doing this is obviously very obvious. It is obvious that he wants Fei to start training from the basics, and it's not just training. It is necessary to consolidate such a foundation before he can make steady progress. Maybe Tang Heo once witnessed a genius similar to Fei, but due to certain reasons, he was lonely and finally fell. Tang Heo knew that the real foundation is the continuous improvement that needs to be controlled the most. Yes, this is also the reason why Tang Heo didn't want Fei's first martial soul to apply a soul ring, even though Fei's soul power was as high as level. Now, there are also some basic knowledge about soul masters. Tang Heo will not go back to teach Fei, because he does not need to teach these. End of this chapter. Chapter 43 GFEIN-039 S Daily Practice. Oiling the soles of the feet. According to Tang Heo's reminder, it is not difficult to see that climbing trees is not the only purpose. Generally speaking, the purpose of giving Fei training is to let him control his overflowing and wasted soul power well. The method of reducing and invalidating the soul power is completely integrated, and Fei also needs to solve the disadvantage of consuming a lot of soul power in an instant when releasing the martial soul, and change it from a torrent to a trickle. A successful bandabar. But it's not that simple. After all, you don't use your hands and only rely on the released soul power to climb. Ordinary soul masters may not seem so simple, and Fei also has the disadvantage of soul power invalidation. Imagine if when climbing on the tree, the soul power suddenly disappeared. Wouldn't it mean that he was about to fall to the ground in an instant? Suddenly, Fei seemed to realize why Tang Heo chose such a place where layers of fallen leaves were stacked together. The obvious reason was that it would make him fall more lightly, so that he wouldn't be crippled directly. Here, you hold this knife. One is to restrain you from using your hands subconsciously, but to record the highest distance you climb every time. When you feel that you have reached the critical point, you can use this knife to draw mark, and the next time you climb, try to surpass the previous mark. And the last point, if you fall to the ground with a knife in your hand, if you don't react in time, you will probably be beaten by this knife. How to embed it firmly into the body depends on how thorough your own reflexes are. Fei took the knife from Tang Heo, looked up at the towering tree in front of him, and subconsciously felt an inexplicable dizziness. Such a subtle, very subtle feeling. Okay, in order to become stronger, in order to freely control this body of soul power, I have to make corresponding sacrifices. Such sacrifices are the only way for me to become stronger. Saying that, Fei started to walk under the tree, imagining that he would start to gather the soul power in his body and move towards his feet, clenched his fist tightly, holding a knife in one hand. Fei could clearly feeling the constant flow of soul power in the body. The soul power that has been gathered a little bit is scattered and gathered at other times. It is really a bit difficult to handle now. Tang Heo stood on the branch of the tree watching this scene, and secretly said, sure enough, such a deep soul power invalidation bondage, if it is slowly resolved in the future, Xiao Fei's achievements may really cause a series of troubles in the future, but the oath and entrustment do not allow me to violate something. Forget it, everything will come naturally. It is good. Suddenly, Ji Fei opened his eyes, and the two black and white imprints on his right hand reappeared. The surging dragon-like lines released traces of palpitating soul power. This is the gathering of soul power. When he woke up as a sign, Ji Fei's eyes sparkled with excitement, and the power of this soul power seemed to be continuously releasing and gathering towards the feat he expected. Phew, it worked. Sure enough, I can control my own soul power with ease. Now I try to control the frequency of the release of soul power, and then use the soul power to generate absorption. I should be able to climb like Uncle Tang without using both hands. Big tree. Ji Fei walked slowly towards the big tree, and continued to move closer. Then he suddenly raised his right foot, which connected to his right hand. The place where the soul power is most concentrated, is also the place where the soul power is the weakest. He just needs to try. It should be possible to control the continuous release of soul power within a channel range. The body began to lean backwards, and Ji Fei suddenly felt a feeling of weightlessness coming from his back, but he didn't have the feeling of falling backwards crazily. Then the strength of the body can still be released in the predetermined direction. Hey, there is no invalidation of soul power. Originally, I planned that, if the invalidation of soul power really occurred, I should reduce the difficulty for him appropriately. It is also possible to have a run-up, but it seems that he has taken a step forward now. The first step is also the most solid first step. Tang Heo looked at Ji Fei's every move in a little surprise, and saw that Ji Fei's left foot kept up with it. A trace of soul power silently generated wind, and Ji Fei's straight body seemed to be embedded straight into the tree. In the middle, he walked upward slowly. His face was a little stiff, but he was actually frightened, afraid that he would fall directly in the next moment. Maintain the output of soul power. Maintain the output of soul power, neither more nor less. Ji Fei kept repeating these words in his mouth as if bewildered, but the effect was very obvious. But suddenly, Ji Fei felt that one of his feet was heavily embedded in the bark, and the other foot felt a sudden loss of force, which was directly combined with the inertia, and it was completely bound by the soul power of one foot. Unable to stop Ji Fei's body, Ji Fei directly fell from the ground 1 foot away in the blink of an eye. Boom. Ji Fei let go. The knife in his hand separated his body, and then his nimble and small body kicked away at the moment when it fell into the air, and an unintentional backflip in the air was completed in Ji Fei's own dazed situation. Ji Fei then landed steadily on the ground. He couldn't believe that he had landed steadily on the ground, but the sudden loss of strength just now made him unable to react at all, and he even drew marks with his hands. None of the time. He looked at the place more than a foot away from the ground, and a footprint deeply embedded in it was very obvious. Ji Fei felt that his mistake was very obvious, that is, his own soul power could control the 2 feet at the beginning. It lasts on one node, but as the layers go deeper, such a node disappears in an instant, and the strength of my left foot increases in vain, and I'm not under my control at all. But fortunately in the process of trying, I don't know what to do. It can be regarded as a relatively lucky thing that there is no such unexpected situation that the soul power is invalidated. You can also feel it. Your own soul power release is not at a continuous node at all. This is also the main reason for the imbalance between your 2 soul powers. Try it, explore it yourself, and explore it in this direction. Whether you can succeed is up to you, and there is not much time left for you. Although this is a difficult cultivation task, you still have to complete it within the specified time. As for the time limit, I will tell you when the time comes. I will let you know. Try to understand it within a few days. The future cultivation will become more and more difficult. Afterwards, Tang Heo landed on the ground steadily, and then returned alone towards the original direction of Holy Soul Village. Don't worry about whether there will be dangerous beasts here. I believe I won't, at least not before I confirm whether you have the ability to carry out the next series of exercises. This was the last sentence Tang Heo left for Jifei, and of course it was equivalent to giving Jifei a reassurance that definitely came from Heo Shandao. End of this chapter. Chapter 44, GFEIN-039, S Daily Practice, as long as you have feet. This is the third day that Tang Heo entrusts Jifei to climb trees without hands. The sound of the turbulent water rushing beside my ears intertwined non-stop. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, and the scorching emotions and unremitting will were also constantly being sharpened. Boom. Call. Jifei once again fell from a place more than 4 feet above the ground, and then fell heavily on the ground with accumulated leaves. Supporting the ground with both hands, Jifei was panting heavily. His gaze was tight. He stared closely at the giant tree about 8 or 9 feet high in front of him. The originally cracked bark has undergone drastic changes in these 3 days. A series of knife marks slashed fiercely on it, and it can be clearly seen that the knife marks near the ground below are not so obvious. On the contrary, the deep knife marks on the top are even flattened. Chunks of bark. Jifei felt pain everywhere in his body. The pain came from inside his body. In the past few days, he gradually got used to the scorching air in the dense forest and the rumbling sound of the waterfall splashing beside his ears. The restless heart seemed to become clearer. It's okay, I'm improving every time. Although I don't know how many times I have fallen, I can feel that, as long as I don't deliberately get impetuous and distracted, I can almost dispel the soul a little bit. The power is invalidated, although the control of the soul power can only be maintained for a period of time, but compared to the previous situation, this is already many times better. The deeply sunken footprint is the ever-burning light to alert Jifei. Whenever he can't figure out how to control the depth of the soul power of his 2 feet, he will subconsciously look at the deeply sunken footprint. The moment he just touched him, he seemed to be able to feel where his soul power distribution point should be. Quack quack. Suddenly, a series of sharp rattling sounds came to my ears. Jifei didn't want to be drawn by them at first, but the sounds were too fast and too sharp. Jifei turned his head slightly, and suddenly he seemed to be it was something incredible. A chicken that resembles a bird. Why not a chicken-like bird? Because Jifei knew this chicken. It was a kind of animal called walking chicken, not a soul beast, because this kind of chicken was too weak to fly, but it walked extremely fast on the ground, hence the name, walking ground chicken. What is that free-range chicken doing? Jifei was a little puzzled. The next moment, the ground-moving chicken he saw raised his 2 slender legs, and rushed up a straight tree in a blink of an eye. Yes, that's right. Just relying on those 2 legs to climb up dryly, Jifei didn't even see the movement of the ground chicken raising its wings. Although the speed of the ground chicken was extremely fast, Jifei could see a trace of charm. Fast, steady, long. The tree that the ground chicken climbed was 10 feet high, and it was definitely a towering tree worthy of the name, but the short-lived time from the slow acceleration at the beginning to the steady and instant sprint at the end was really just that long. Instant thing. Is it stable? Is it accurate? Is it fast? And it lasts. Jifei seemed to have grasped something that he needed to rely on and refer to. He quickly stood up and stuffed his clothes into the rope around his waist. It must be like this. A tree that is 7 feet tall should be able to reach it in an instant, and with the control of my soul power, I can definitely hang it on the branch like Uncle Tang. Again. Jifei picked up the knife again, and a little bit of soul power began to mobilize. Jifei couldn't remember how many times he had used it back and forth in the past 3 days. From fullness to final lack, every step seems painful. Tang, tang, tang. Without further ado, Jifei turned around. His feet were leaning firmly on the book cover. The contact between the 2 seemed to have no common sense friction, and more of it was the self-absorbing nature of the soul power. Increased strength. The bark, which was only fleeting, was directly used by Jifei as a new point of leverage at that moment, and then he sprinted over. At some point, Tang Heo stood not far away and looked at Jifei who was speeding towards the treetops. His eyes suddenly flickered. 3 days. Is it possible to master this level in 3 days? Sure enough. Is this how geniuses are cultivated? Even if the restraint is great, it can't hinder the display of one's own talent, let alone working so hard. Tang Heo couldn't help recalling Jifei's every action and every choice during the past 3 days. Defying had already rushed towards the mountains, rivers, and moons before dawn, brought some food along the way, drank river water, and ate some dry food at noon, and passed by carelessly, and at night, he would rush home, almost when the stars were shining, and the moon was shining. On the surface, Tang Heo didn't come to observe Defying's training, but he was able to know exactly what Defying's movements were like. Falling down again and again, losing strength again and again, sweating again and again, summarizing again and again, trying again and again, the other side. Defying didn't know when he had already stood firmly on a big tree branch that protruded from the ground. It was already more than 7 feet above the ground. Standing here, Defying had a dazzling feeling, but Defying knew that this is caused by being too excited. This is the feeling of success. Suddenly, Defying spotted Tang Heo standing not far away, and then clenched his fists excitedly. Uncle Tang, I succeeded. I succeeded in 3 days. I was still imagining what I should do just now. To have the speed of galloping, but also to maintain one's own physical strength and soul power. I happened to see the process of a wild chicken climbing a tree, and suddenly I felt a little bit of enlightenment, and it was that kind of great enlightenment. Using the behavior of animals and combining their own strengths and weaknesses to find the fastest solution to things. Although it can't be said to be exquisite, it can be considered meticulous. Tang Heo looked at the tree hanging upside down on the branch at this moment. Defying. Successful. So what do you think? Have you felt the subtlety of the combination of soul power and your physical memory? Tang Heo looked at Defying and asked. Hearing this, Defying didn't answer in a hurry. In vain, his body turned 180 degrees back and forth, and he stood straight on the top of the tree. He watched Tang Heo release his martial spirit while thinking. Said, Uncle Tang, look, this is the result. The delicate villain in his hand slowly opened his hands, and the seemingly delicate, but actually nothing body was combined with a hazy purple for some time. Martial soul, soul power, the combination of the two can trigger the most beautiful power. Uncle Tang, let's take a look at the power displayed by my first martial soul, chaos, and I will tell you about my specific insights after the show. Of course, I have to ask Uncle Tang about the next step of cultivation. Come on, hyena possessed. Blue silver grass. Now, end of this chapter. Chapter 45 Little Theater Tang 3. Why is your package so heavy? Not in college. Tang San, how about we discuss it? A light voice sounded from Tang San's ears. Watching Xiao Wu's gaze on him, Tang San subconsciously gathered the fresh and dry quilt in his arms. It can be said that I had an addiction to the boss of Kish just now, but soon since I was unexpectedly defeated by such a seemingly weak little girl. Alas, this boss of Kish experience card is really a joke. In Defying's heart, he couldn't help but think of Brother G. It would be great if Brother G could come together, then the two of them can be companions in life and study again. At least he doesn't have to be so restrained. Say, what are you discussing? Tang San was alert and naturally knew what Xiao Wu was referring to. Brother G didn't prepare bedding for him, and he remembered saying something euphemistically called the beauty of an adult something weird. What beauty would there be if the quilt was sent out? I don't have any money on me, so why do I want to use the bed as a quilt? Take a look. Your quilt is so big, it can be covered by 2 people. Pull the 2 beds together, and we sleep together. Won't we all be covered with quilts? Xiao Wu smiled and pointing to the 2 beds on the inner side. There were 2 huge burdens on them, which belonged to Tang San. Ah. Tang San opened his mouth wide, looking surprised. He felt conflicted in his heart. How could it be possible to use a quilt together and sleep together in a bed that big? It's a bit bad, isn't it? After all, men and women don't know each other. Why don't you just give you the quilt? I'll take a step at a time. Said. Tang San handed the quilt in his hand to Xiao Wu. Why do men and women not kiss each other? Are you afraid that I will eat you? Why are you a big man so troubled? I don't want to occupy your bedding, so I happily decided to sleep on a bed. A quilt, hurry up, don't you have great strength? Put your bed and the one next to it together. Xiao Wu pointed to the 2 seemingly clean beds. Tang San was stunned in embarrassment. He didn't know how to refute. This is what happened. Isn't this too dramatic? Even the storytellers in his previous life wouldn't dare to say that. Alas, there was no other way. Tang San looked even more embarrassed seeing the other people in Kish smiling slightly. He was also very helpless and could only move his bed towards the side where Xiao Wu was standing leaned over. The two beds seemed to be seamlessly connected, and the spread quilt could completely cover the two beds, which made Tang San wonder if the master had long thought that he would share the bed with a strange little girl quilt, and what Brother G said. The beauty of adults. Tang San, why is your burden so heavy? I can't even lift it up. What did you bring from home? It's cold, isn't it delicious? Xiao Wu on the side tightly held Tang San's huge burden with both hands, and the heavy burden was placed between the two beds. Xiao Wu stared at Tang San with a puzzled face, wishing to explore this in the next moment. What exactly is contained in such a heavy burden? Oh, my brother prepared it for me. I don't know what's in it. My brother told me to call when I went to the college. It seems to be something I will use in my future life. Anyway, it's quite heavy. Looking at the two huge packages, Tang San suddenly felt a heavy heart. It would be great if Brother G came too. I don't know how Brother G and Dad live at home. Is the clothes good or not? Is Dad still drunk all day long? It seems that I have only been here not long ago. Why does it feel like I have been away from home for decades? Haha. You still have a brother. Why didn't he come with you? Xiao Wu wiped the sweat from her forehead and looked at the somewhat lonely Tang San in surprise. Well, my brother is older than me. He is very smart and treats me very well. Originally, he also had a place for a work-study student, and my brother's martial spirit is better than mine. But my father didn't let me. My brother came here, and my brother stayed in Saint Soul Village with Dad without saying anything. It's a pity, but it doesn't matter. Xiao San, just let your little sister Wu protect you in the future. Your little sister Wu and I are very powerful. Xiao Wu stood up and patted Tang San's shoulder, smiling slightly. Then he jumped onto the bed again. This is the boundary line transformed from baggage. Hehe, if you dare to cross the boundary at night, I will definitely make you look good. Sister Xiao, Tang San, it's noon. We can go to the cafeteria to have lunch. How about we go together? By the way, I can take you to familiarize yourself with the environment of the academy. Wang Sheng stood not far away and faced Tang San said with Xiao Wu. Food? Xiao Wu seemed to have touched a light line in her heart and immediately jumped off the bed again, her exquisite eyes fixed on Wang Sheng who was not far away. Can we go to eat? Can we eat? What is delicious? Delicious? Wang Sheng and the work students standing beside him looked at Xiao Wu bitterly. Miss Xiao, you are joking. We are just a group of work students, and we usually eat food in the cafeteria. Buy some steamed buns, and go there with pickles. Yes, there are free soup pipes, but steamed buns still cost money. Tang San was astonished, secretly thinking whether he should drink some free soup to satisfy his stomach. There is dry food at home, and I didn't bring it myself, but will Brother G pack some for myself? Should be, right? Then I can just eat the dry food that Brother G packed for me and wait to find a blacksmith shop in Notting City. Although I don't have Brother G to guide me by my side, I have grown up, and some everything needs to be done by yourself. Tang San turned around, knelt on the bed, glanced at his two huge and heavy burdens. Open it and have a look. Brother G doesn't know what he has prepared for me. Does it cost money to eat? Is it the soul coin you mentioned? I don't seem to have any. Are you going to be hungry? Difficult. I don't want to be hungry. Xiao-san, did you bring any dry food at home? Share some with me. Okay. I'll return the soul coins to you after cleaning. Xiao Wu looked at Tang San who was unpacking and asked with a smile on his face. Tang San said, there should be, my brother should prepare some for me, and this burden is so heavy, it's enough to eat for a while. I'll share it with you. Anyway, Wang Sheng said that it's okay in the cafeteria. It's just steamed buns and pickles. It's not as satisfying as the dry biscuits at home. Tang San opened a relatively soft bag, and what came into view was a piece of paper and some clothes. The piece of paper was very flat, with neat handwriting drawn on it. Little San, when you read this letter, you have already arrived at the academy and have temporarily settled down in your residence. I'm happy with you. I actually have a lot of things I want to say to you, but after thinking about it, I still don't want to say it. Well, although I didn't go to Notting College with you to study, you can rest assured that I have no regrets. On the contrary, I feel pretty good at home. Maybe my ambition is so ordinary. Little San, these 2 bundles are gifts I prepared for you. You should dress decently outside. Although we are not people who want to save face, how can you find me a sister-in-law if you don't dress better? I still want to hug my nephew in the future. Hahaha, just kidding. There are some soul coins in the package containing this letter, although I don't leave you with many soul coins, but your soul coins over the past year are definitely enough is enough. Eat something good, improve your life, and the other package contains some materials you want, and it will be heavy to carry to the college, right? But in the end, you will be able to pay off your hardships. Okay, there is nothing else to say. See you at the end of the year. Fei. Remember. Tang San's eyes were suddenly filled with swelling tears. He opened his clothes. He was taken aback suddenly. What did he see? He saw something that he could never forget in this life. He saw the most soul coins in his life, of course from childhood to now. The golden soul coins have been stacked several times. Dozens if not hundreds, let alone a year. I'm afraid that the good life of an ordinary family for decades can be created. Tang San, what's the matter with you? Hey, what is this golden thing? Xiao Wu posted up, looking at the letter Tang San held tightly, and the golden thing covered by the clothes in the bundle. Oh, it's nothing. I just read the letter my brother left for me. I just felt a little bit emotional. I don't have any dry food or anything, but we can go to the cafeteria to eat. Let's go. I invite you, you guys. All the work-study students present looked at Tang San strangely, but when Tang San took out a golden soul coin and presented it in front of their eyes, they realized that this was on the hidden depth of the regal. Really rich. A few days later, blacksmith shop. Tang San, come on. End of this chapter. Chapter 46 GFEIN-039 S Daily Cultivation. Walking on the waterfall. Tang Heo stared in astonishment at Fei, who was standing by himself at the moment. At this moment, Fei's body was covered by a different halo, and a layer of mottled black and white light panels covered his skin. The originally delicate little figure in his palm had disappeared at this moment, and what suddenly appeared was a group of teasing blue silver grass. The deep blue silver grass slightly releases a blue soul power. The surging breath is not much weaker than that of ordinary great soul masters. The fangs protruding from Fei's face are the most it's scary. There is still no trace of the white-skinned green pheasant's appearance, and the gloomy and fierce appearance occupies most of it. Uncle Tang, how is it? The wonder of my chaotic martial spirit is much different from what you guessed, right? A low to hoarse voice slowly rang out from Fei's mouth. Fei sneered for a while, looking at the sparse hair and the black and white spots all around his body. In fact, it was Fei. Now this appearance can't smile at all. It actually has the unique possession of the vortex hyena beast spirit, and can also release the blue silver grass spirit. It seems that my guess is still too far away. How do you think how long you can maintain this state? And how many spirits do you think you can add at once? Tang Heo looked at Fei very seriously. Now Fei's appearance had an unprecedented impact on the fixed soul master knowledge he had maintained for decades. Even if he came out, he wouldn't believe it, would he? A small amount of soul power attached to it can complete the martial soul, and it can also be attached to the body. What kind of concept is this? You add a martial soul to each battle. When someone fights, several martial spirits are added. There should be many, even unlimited. I can use these spirits to add attributes to myself. For example, if I add the beast spirit of the hyena now, it can have a speed and bite force that ordinary people can't match. But the silver grass martial soul doesn't have any substantial power, and you must have seen it, Uncle Tang. The disadvantages of me in this state are obvious. The consumption of soul power is too great. Although I have no problem with such a soul power, there are still some nouns that I can't fully understand. But now I feel exhausted after maintaining it for a while, and you said that my innate soul power is at the 20th level, and I have become like this at the 20th level, and now I'm not affected by the invalidation of soul power. Your analysis is very thorough. Nothing in this world is perfect. It looks abnormal, but it actually has flaws. It seems that unlimited can be established, but the number of martial arts that can be added at one time is limited. Tang Heo analyzed. Ji-Fei nodded, and then slowly dissipated his marvelous state of combining martial souls. A sense of constant loss of strength came over him, and Ji-Fei fell to the ground in an instant, panting continuously. Although your current soul power has level, it is still the cultivation base of a soul warrior. After you get 2 soul rings, you can change this state. Okay, you don't need to practice today, and start tomorrow. The first stage is the next level of cultivation. The first stage is to lay the foundation. The second stage and the third stage are continuous and practical. I'm surprised that you only used it for 3 days to climb trees and control the soul power. I hope you can do it next time. Levels can also be done. The next level you can use your first martial arts soul power, because it is dangerous, not like falling on the ground and have leaves to block. The next level is a little careless, and you must death his disability. At this time, Tang Heo's eyes glanced intentionally or unintentionally at the turbulent waterfall hanging in the distance. Uncle Tang, let's start today. I can perceive my own shortcomings, and a year is not long. I don't have extra time to waste. Except for basic sleep, as long as I don't practice, I feel that I'm wasting my time. What I consume in this way is my own life. Supporting his arms, Ji-Fei stood up slowly. His complexion was more morbid than before, but he didn't say much. He just insisted that he was going to start the first stage of training today. The next level of practice. Tang Heo looked at Ji-Fei in astonishment. Is this the same Ji-Fei boy who would complain for a while, even when he started a fire? Is this still the Ji-Fei who follows Tang San every day so as not to cook for himself? Tang Heo is also an iron-blooded person. He did not order Ji-Fei to rest, because he also knew that, as Ji-Fei himself said, a year is not long. In fact, Heo just let him go to the academy to study, as long as he doesn't use the second martial spirit. No matter how wonderful the martial soul is, it is only innate. Although you can lead some people in combat power, you still have to rely on your own efforts. The relatively fair point of this world may be that it gives you a framework for cultivation. Teachers bravely climbed the peak until the peak. Okay, since you said that, I won't say anything. Your next level of cultivation will change from this smooth wood to there. Following the direction of Tang Heo's finger, Ji-Fei saw the waterfall washed by the torrent. For some reason, Ji-Fei didn't say anything, but just nodded and asked Tang Heo about some basic matters. Uncle Tang should mean I can use my martial soul and soul power to protect my body, and I can fall under the waterfall and cause serious injuries, or even fall on a stone and die directly. I changed the method of maintaining my soul power to a method of maintaining it under a huge impact for a long time, and although I can learn to walk on the ground and rush up to the treetops to maintain my soul power as much as possible when I climb a tree, but on a waterfall like this it is absolutely impossible, because on the one hand, I need to avoid the strong impact of the water flow, and on the other hand, I need to release my soul power, which will occupy another part of my energy. It's good to understand. Although it looks difficult, it is actually the most basic thing for an innate full soul power of level, like you. Okay, let's practice like this. I hope you can succeed as soon as possible. There is no shortcut. Climbing waterfalls is more difficult than climbing trees. How to achieve success and integration is up to you. By the way, the wine I bought before was good. I will buy some more that day, and the flagon you bought is also very good, very strong. After the words were finished, Tang Heo left again, and now Ji-Fei was left alone. Ji-Fei scratched his head in confusion, so he asked, do you want to buy wine? Douluo, thank you for helping me treat my fall injury these 3 days. Let's discuss something. End of this chapter. Chapter 47 GFEIN-039 S Daily Cultivation. A sincere confession at the top of the waterfall. Tang Tang Tang. The waterfall hanging high in the distance rushes against the extremely fast water flow. From a distance, one can vaguely see a slightly small figure flickering back and forth in it. What is he doing? If you actually see this scene, you will be amazed. His body was covered with a layer of animal fur, and his exposed teeth were covered with a light-colored film. He was sprinting towards the top of the waterfall at an extremely fast speed, as if the huge impact of the falling water was a big deal to him. It's nothing, and what's more, it's just two beast-like legs that reflect the water light. His hands are behind his back, pretending to be a bull, but a few drops of water can be vaguely seen falling on his little hands, and then slipping straight down. Coming. The boy's parted eyes stared at a huge rock that protruded not far away. The dark green moss was stained on the edge, and the splashed water droplets fell hard into the moss. That was his goal of success. There is the last node of his training to hit the waterfall during this period of time. As long as you succeed, you can go to the next stage of cultivation. Although you can't say that you are perfect in controlling your soul power now, you have reached a pinnacle of existence. The continuous release of soul power can last until it is exhausted. When washing away the immeasurable power, he can also freely change the size and density of the soul power gathered under his feet. This is what Tang Heo said, to control the soul power and continue to output. However, in the blink of an eye, Fei charged at a high speed and then landed steadily on top of the rock target he had set. His not so tall body looked back at the surroundings, and he could see the green trees surrounding mountains, rivers, and moons in the distance. Woo you. Nearby, the water rushing from an unknown distance ruthlessly plunged into the riverbed below. Fei's complexion was not as excited as before. It wasn't because his head was washed away by the water, but because he had truly realized what is called real pain in his heart. 5 days, but 5 days. I did it again. From the zero foundation standing under the waterfall, it was extremely difficult, to now I can climb to the top without any confusion and no hesitation. How did this come about? He was knocked straight down on the rocks again and again. It was washed into the surrounding water holes again and again. There was even one time when Fei was hit directly on a sharp-edged stone, without any accident. Even though he had soul power to protect his body, his calf was pierced by the stone directly. Douluo is a very versatile little guy, and her ability to heal injuries is even better. Fei's calf, which was pierced by stones, recovered in the blink of an eye under Douluo's slight green light. There was no scar left at all. This is the most amazing thing. Fei asked Douluo what kind of skill it is. Douluo just replied as usual, you guess wrong anyway, it's useless to tell you. Anyway, after this period of time, the relationship between Fei and Douluo became active, and Douluo didn't feel as cold as before. On the contrary, she cared about Fei very much. How is it? Now, what level do you feel that you have controlled and nullified your soul power? Is it as easy as releasing your soul power? Douluo's clear voice hovering beside Fei slowly sounded. Fei smiled warmly. It's okay. I seem to be tired these few days. I'm afraid that even the soul invalidation ghost thing should go to rest. Anyway, it's okay if he didn't come out to trouble me when I was most difficult. Yes, it's you. Douluo. Thank you. You have worked harder than me, although you don't tell me, but I can see that your complexion is not very good recently. Where is the rosiness before? Douluo didn't say much, but slowly landed on Fei's shoulder, and also looked at the mixed scenery around her. This was the highest point surrounded by mountains, and this highest point could take almost everything around her in front of her eyes. What a beautiful view. The green is pleasant, the halo is beautiful, thriving. Destroy. Fei, do you think this place is beautiful? Douluo asked Fei abruptly. It's beautiful, surrounded by mountains and rivers, and there is a sense of prosperity everywhere. Although it is not a fairyland on earth, it is also worthy of the beautiful place name of this month's downhill. We used to do the same thing. Douluo continued to say the shocking words. But I don't remember. Fei neither questioned nor refuted. During this time, Douluo often chatted with him, although most of the chats were by herself. I don't remember. Yeah, you don't remember, but I remember. Didn't you ask me what my identity is? Fei nodded. Of course he remembered it. How could he forget such an unforgettable memory? I'll tell you now, okay? Douluo turned her head and looked at Fei seriously. Fei didn't reveal too much. If you can be happy, then say it. If you are sad, then don't say it. I can roughly guess. Maybe you will be confused. Douluo gave such a very off-the-wall answer. What would you think if I said I was your wife? Very happy. Fei replied blankly. Or was it a surprise? PFFT, you look exactly the same as before. You are so boring and have a terrible look. Luo smiled for the first time, as if an iceberg had melted to reveal its brilliant original appearance. So is it true? Don't tell me the details, I only have the final answer. Luo casually nodded. Well, a long time ago, a long time later, it has always been. It seems that I'm also very lucky. I seem to remember a little bit. It's better not to show it. After all, Tang Heo is not simple. After the words fell, Luo disappeared. Fei was stunned. It seems that it's really not that simple. Life. I know that your name is not Luo, but your name is Life. I'm afraid I only remember that your name is Life. Phew, she should be happy now, right? In fact, sometimes happiness is as simple as that. If you reveal a little bit of thought, Luo will find it by herself. Work hard. Although it's a joke, an oath is an oath. I want to become better than anyone else. Be strong. Then it's time to ask Uncle Tang about the next stage of cultivation. Judging from the current situation, Xiaozhen is about to get the first soul ring, right? There is still a big gap between me and him. As soon as the words fell, Fei dived straight to the bottom of the waterfall. Fei's expression didn't change at all. When he dived into the air, Fei suddenly turned around and landed directly on the waterfall below, steady and firm on the stones of the riverbed. Perhaps Fei still doesn't know how his words today will change him and Luo in the future. No one knows that in the future, the entire Douluo Continent will be pushed across the entire Douluo Continent to open up the Seven Emotions Palace, the ancestor of the Sun and Moon Savage Wilderness. Such legends will always show the two of them for tens of thousands of years. End of this chapter. Chapter 48 GFEIN-039 S Daily Cultivation. I would have bought paper if I knew it earlier. Notting City, 400 miles northeast, Hunting Soul Forest. The provocative blue-silver grass swayed slowly one by one. A round of pale yellow rings covered the surrounding of the blue-silver grass. Waves of turbulent soul power came continuously like a tide. Is Xiaozhen's brother? There is such a wonderful and weird number one martial soul in the world. Swallowing waste, turning treasures, and using other people's martial souls through soul power. So how do soul rings work? Do we need to add different types? Is it a soul ring? I really want to see that kind of martial soul. It will definitely improve my theory of martial soul in the future, but it is a pity. Tang, Uncle Tang, you're not joking, are you? At this moment, Fei was still on the downhill slope of mountains, rivers, and moons. He stared at a pair of wine jars in front of him with somewhat astonished eyes. It is extremely strong, and there are a few small balls on the side, which are hot balls and special hollow wooden balls, which Fei bought at the market some time ago. When he returned home yesterday afternoon, Tang Heo seemed to know that Fei had successfully climbed the waterfall with his own strength, and he didn't ask for any details. Tang Heo surprisingly didn't ask any questions this time, and Fei didn't ask too many questions. Leaving aside whether Tang Heo will tell himself the story, even after the story, wouldn't he still have to continue his cultivation process? After all, the remaining stages of cultivation are not as simple as they appear on the surface. For example, the wine jars in front of him, as well as hot balls and special exposed wooden balls. These things that originally seemed to have nothing to do with cultivation are now placed in front of Fei's eyes. He is naturally confused, but just now Tang Heo pointed to these wine jars and said something to him. Use your own soul power to release from the wine jars, to make the wine jars themselves vibrate, and then use the power of the vibration to smash these wine jars. You can't directly use any brute force and only allow you to release peace. You should not play tricks on the Yunyang type of soul power. After all, this is your own cultivation process. If you don't even take it seriously, then you should give up as soon as possible. Those hot balls and special wooden spheres have the same effect. I don't restrict you to use that one, or start with that one first. Anyway, as long as you succeed in all of them, these are enough for you to explore for a month. If after you succeed, you will naturally be able to perceive the benefits of my letting you practice like this. Fei remained silent. He somewhat regretted what he did in the first place. He wanted the hardest wine jar. Obviously, it would be fine to buy an ordinary wine jar and use his soul power to vibrate the wine jar. Can use brute force to directly smash the wine jar. Blow up a hot bowl and use soul power to break it. and this wooden ball seems to be the hardest, right? After all, wooden things can only be broken by relying on the vibration of soul power alone. Don't just look at it, it just sounds unrealistic. After all, although brute force crushing and pure soft soul power crushing are both crushing, they are absolutely different in specific form. Fei didn't complain to Tang Heo because he wanted to practice to truly control the martial soul. Uncle Tang. Looking at Tang Heo, who was walking towards the distance, Fei suddenly called out to him, "Will you take me to find my soul ring in a year? Or am I alone?" "I'll take you." Tang Heo didn't look back, just answered 3 words in a simple way, and then left straight away. Fei looked at Tang Heo, who was gradually disappearing into the woods, and smiled indifferently. It seems that not going to Notting College to study seems to be a very good choice. Alas, it is a pity that there are many things that I can't see. Picking up a wine jar, Fei looked at the sleek wine jar and smiled with relief. If the empty wine jar is only relying on vibration, how much force will it take to penetrate and smash it? Do not use brute force. How could it be possible? Fei, haven't you seen what that Tang Heo wants to understand? Luo's voice sounded slowly. "Oh, little Lulu, what do you see?" Fei said with a wicked smile. He didn't say anything about Fei's intimate title of Luo, but continued, "It seems that you are usually quite smart. Why are you so stupid today?" He obviously wanted to let you know that your cultivation speed during this time is really too fast. Your foundation is not stable at all, and your own feelings can't keep up with the changes at all, and you value hard work more than talent. He wants to tell you, don't deny the importance of talent. Seize your own super talent to do something to slowly hone your temperament, so that you will become stronger step by step. Facing Luo's words, Fei was taken aback. "Yeah, you are right, and what Uncle Tang wanted to tell me is also true. Talent is very important, but I have been denying this theory of the supremacy of talent. Those who work hard can achieve an existence that is difficult for others to reach." What a pity. Fei placed the wine jar in the palm of his right hand, and with a little thought, a terrifying force was released directly from Fei's hand along the meridian. Under Fei's own control, he directly merged into the wine jar. In response, the wine jar began to tremble violently from its original level. It was definitely not caused by the trembling of Fei's right hand, but a real tremor. The inside of the wine jar was driven by Fei's own soul power. Huge force penetrated into the inside of the wine jar, and no glazed layer was found to penetrate. Boom. In response, the intact and seemingly hard wine jar instantly turned into powder and slowly dissipated from the gap between Fei's fingertips. Luo looked at Fei and seemed to have something to say, but she didn't say it in the end. Fei looked indifferently at the wine jar powder that was slowly passing away from his fingertips. Talent, the highest. Tang San is right. This is the gap that can't be made up. Hard work for more than 10 days is not as good as a talent. Haha, irony. It is really irony. That's all. Let's change 1. Break 1 and break 2. There is no difference between the two. Success is success. It seems that the disadvantages brought to me by the invalidation of soul power have also been assimilated by me. This should be the effect of hard work, right? Yes, no. Dad, Brother G, I have obtained a soul ring. I'm now a 13th level control system soul master. I have found a master on my way of cultivation. When I, Dad, Brother G, return home at the end of the year, I will let you see a brand new me. Little San, come, can you forge this weapon? End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Year-End Departing Season 1. Ever since Fei proved the importance of talent on that day, he has completed the training task given to him by Tang Heo. Whether it is a hot ball, a wine jar, or even a special wooden ball, it seems like a child's play to him. In Fei's hands, he would try his best to complete any seemingly impossible training tasks within 7 days without delay. Tang Heo didn't tell Ji-Fei about the knowledge of soul masters, so it can't be said that he doesn't know. It can only be said that what he taught is only Ji-Fei's method of controlling soul power alone, and the rest must be studied by Ji-Fei himself, or after trying again and again, Ji-Fei came up with an answer similar to the correct one. Ji-Fei didn't have anything to say. After all, the method of controlling soul power taught by Tang Heo was already considered the most important cultivation method for him. And after that, Ji-Fei also perfected all aspects of soul power control, release and maintenance of soul power through constant tempering, and what he did was much more perfect than Tang Heo expected. Ji-Fei's current soul power level is still at level. He hasn't carried out any systematic cultivation of soul master level for a while. First of all, Ji-Fei hasn't obtained a soul ring to break through the level. Ji-Fei himself is not very worried. His own foundation is poor. Isn't the 1 year that Tang Heo said is a necessary way to lay a solid foundation for him? And every day, Ji-Fei's practice starts with climbing the waterfall. Ji-Fei got up earlier than Tang San before. He would talk about the goal of the day planned the night before, and when night fell, he would review the day. The shortcomings of his own cultivation and the areas he needs to improve are similar to the methods Ji-Fei learned in his previous life, but he knows that the pain caused by cultivation is real. He doesn't know how many times he has been scratched by sharp-edged stones, and he doesn't know how many times he has to condense his soul power every day. Every night, the feeling of severe pain coming from all over the meridian is completely let in spasms. Fortunately, with Douluo by his side, Ji-Fei didn't really care about his injuries. Of course, those injuries were limited to external injuries. Ji-Fei just slowly recuperated and resolved internal injuries, and he also learned a lot during the process of resolving them. The subtle use of soul power. Compared with his hard work, Tang Heo is completely like a shopkeeper who is throwing his hands away. He just drinks a little wine all day long, really a little wine, and he looks so many times better than the old drunkenness. The words were still as few as before. Even if Ji-Fei didn't ask him some questions about cultivation, Tang Heo could go on without saying a word for several days. In Ji-Fei's own words, if Douluo wasn't by his side to accompany him, he might have been depressed. There is no time to practice, and the new year is approaching. From a distance, the mountains, rivers, and moons have become bare and trees have withered, and some places on the river have frozen. The other world is extremely cold, and sometimes it even flows. The impacting waterfalls will freeze, which forms a splendid scenery of another world. Little Green, you're not cold in these clothes. Ji-Fei stood at the door of the blacksmith's shop, rubbing his little hands, and stomping his feet in the heat. He just woke up and now it looks like the sun has just risen. The weather in the past few days it was extraordinarily cold, but luckily the little rich woman Douluo was rich, and Ji-Fei could buy some winter clothes for him and Tang Heo. Otherwise, with such a figure, he would have to freeze to death, unless he lay under the covers all day. Even Tang Heo said that this year's weather is the coldest in the past few decades. It's not cold. My clothes are all illusions. Isn't it normal to protect yourself from the cold? Douluo likes to wear light green clothes. Her small body is wrapped in a skirt with small feathers, and her fair skin looks exquisite enough to amaze everyone. Now Douluo is wearing a white dress. The cloak was floating next to Ji-Fei's shoulders. She was stunned for a moment when she saw Ji-Fei's cold red ears, and then it slowly fell on Ji-Fei's shoulders, and then stretched out her small hands to hold Ji-Fei's ears. A breath of hot air blew out, warming Ji-Fei's ears. Ji-Fei trembled all over. He only felt a wave of heat coming towards his ears with the caress of a pair of gentle hands. He was not embarrassed. If he was injured somewhere, Douluo would gently heal him. Xiaolu, it's okay. I'm not very cold. You see, the end of the year is approaching, and Xiaosan is coming back soon, right? I don't know how far he has grown in this year's practice. He shouldn't be worse than me. How much? After all, I have only learned the method of continuously controlling the soul power and the method of using the first martial soul, and I have not learned anything else. Ji-Fei smiled slightly, although he said so, but he knew that, although he did not put a soul ring on the martial soul, his combat power was different from that of Japanese. Don't think too much, you are unique. Douluo's soft voice sounded, and no matter how tough he is, you're still his brother, and it won't help if you think too much about it. I have a hunch that there will be big changes in the near future. Oh, a big change? Tang Heo? Or is Xiao coming back? Or is Xiao coming back with her little girlfriend? Fei looked at Douluo. I really can't think of any other big changes other than this. You see, it's so cold recently that I can't even climb the waterfall, and those broken wine jars are just child's play to me, and even the recent forging has become more and more proficient for me, even though I didn't study it seriously, yes, but it's almost done during the daily forging. It is also warm to say, although Fei and Tang Heo's life has become better now that they have the golden soul coin given by Douluo. Originally Fei just bought some food and made Tang Heo a pot of good wine to satisfy him for a long time. But after a long time, Fei has become a bit extravagant in spending money, but it is only limited to 10 silver soul coins a month. Douluo usually doesn't eat anything, but she can eat it, and she is more picky eater than Fei. Generally, those that don't taste good and smell bad just glance away and take it as air. Fei even had some doubts. Is this really the daughter-in-law he wants to raise? Haha, although it was all Douluo's money. Fei, come in, I have something to tell you. Unexpectedly, Tang Heo's slightly low voice from inside the door suddenly rang out, and Fei, who originally wanted to have a joking conversation with Douluo, also hurriedly turned around and walked towards the house. An inexplicable and weird feeling. This feeling was subtle enough to startle him. Douluo, what you said may be correct. End of this chapter. Chapter 50. Year-end departing season 2. Uncle Tang, what do you want me to do? But what new training method did you come up with? Just tell me the training method, no matter what difficulties and obstacles. I will never say no, character. Looking at Tang Heo leaning on the chair, Fei subconsciously thought, isn't it cold to wear so little? Tang Heo was still pretty much the same as usual, with a rough and loose robe covering his body. He glanced at Fei coldly. It was less of the looseness of the past, and more of a sense of seriousness that was rarely seen in ordinary times. Tang Heo said slowly, it's almost a year, right? The first semester of Junior 3 is coming to an end. Fei nodded. Yeah, I don't know how much Xiao has grown in this year. At least he has truly become a soul master who has obtained a soul ring, right? Tang Heo didn't choose to continue discussing the words about Tang San. Perhaps in Tang Heo's view, continuing to discuss this topic didn't have any substantive meaning. He didn't see how Tang San had really grown. Everything was nothing but falsehood. It's just a guess. Fei, you have almost mastered the release of soul power and solved the disadvantages of soul power invalidation in the past year, so you can start to practice as a soul master normally. You are almost 7 years old now, almost a year later than Xiao, but you have an 8 full soul power at level. Level is not very important. Do you know what you are missing now? What's missing? Fei shook his head. Maybe it's the knowledge of soul master cultivation, but in the end it's just a foreshadowing. What's really missing? Maybe I'm a fan of the authorities. Information, experience, hard work, and growth. Little son needs to grow quickly, and you also need to grow quickly, but the growth of the two of you is different. Xiao first grows in strength, and then sharpens his character, but you are different. Although your character is good, you have some problems. Things may affect your Xingxing very much in the future, but the improvement of your own strength cannot be left behind. Tang Heo paused, then continued, so do you understand what I said? Understood. Fei was in a daze. Did Tang Heo mean to stay here, to hone his Xingxing, or to teach him the real method of soul master cultivation? Silly. Of course what he said was that the two should gather together and practice together. Douluo's words awakened the dreamer. Cultivate together? Fei suddenly raised his head. Uncle Tang, are we leaving soon? Tang Heo nodded. Sacred Soul Village is not your place of cultivation. I'm going to take you there to hunt spirit beasts and obtain 2 spirit rings, and then send you to a place where you will fall into doom if you are not careful. There, you will meet some young geniuses who are similar to you. Although I don't want to go there, but I have to send you there because of my promise. It's still a year, and I'll pick you up after a year. I hope you don't become someone I don't want to see at that time, and you need to remember what I told you before. Ji-Fei doesn't care about that place that Tang Heo said right now. What he cares about now is when to leave, whether he wants to go with Tang San. If you don't stay with Tang San, can you wait for Tang San to come back after the Chinese New Year and return to Notting College before leaving? Well, this semester of Junior 3 is about to end in a month or so. We will set off tomorrow. First to hunt monsters for you to get a soul ring, and then I will prepare some things and I will send you there. How far you can go in your time depends on yourself. Remember there, don't show too much talent. If someone wants to take you as a disciple, you have to refuse, understand? Uncle Tang, what exactly is that place you mentioned? Ji-Fei became more and more interested in the place Tang Heo mentioned. Is it also a college? Tang Heo nodded and then shook his head. Wuhandian Academy. It is also considered a joint academy. It doesn't matter to you whether you know it or not. You just need to know where you will be the real system. It's enough to learn very good knowledge about soul masters. Martial Soul Hall. Ji-Fei was a little confused. Isn't this Wuhandian Tang Heo's enemy? Happy, send yourself to Wuhandian Academy. Does Fei also know about the Wuhan Palace? That's right, aren't all the deacons who awaken the Wuhan are from the Wuhan Palace? The methods of the Wuhan Palace are really great. Tang Heo said there was a tone of contempt and disdain in the words. Uncle Tang clearly dislikes Wuhandian from your tone, but why did you send me to Wuhandian Academy? And there must be some conditions to enter such a place, right? Ji-Fei asked tentatively. Tang Heo said coldly, this is not something you need to care about. Although I don't want to send you there, a promise is a promise. 1 year, remember, you only have 1 year. After 1 year I will pick you up. Of course, it is best that you can do something to drive them out, and it will save me to pick you up. It is best that you dismantle the Wuhandian Academy. Hey, Uncle Tang, you are so hostile. I don't want to go to Wuhandian Academy anymore. Why don't I go to Notting Academy to study? Anyway, it's only a year, and it will pass soon. Ji-Fei said to Tang Heo with a smile. No. Tang Heo didn't even have the intention of hesitating. He directly refused to accept. Going to Wuhandian Academy is the way you have to go. Although I don't like Wuhandian, but the academy is the nature of an academy. Remember, you go to Wuhandian Palace Academy is just for studying. As for the troublemakers, you can handle it yourself. Just don't make trouble everywhere. And you are not allowed to say you know me, otherwise you may not be able to accept the consequences. Remember this, very important. Of course Ji-Fei knew. You beat the Pope to death indirectly. If I said you were my adoptive father, would I be skinned and cramped? Uncle Tang, do you want me to be a spy? Do you want me to disintegrate Wuhandian Academy indirectly? And give me this 1 year deadline? Ji-Fei thought secretly. Let's forget it. Don't care what method to use first. Let's talk about it first. I don't know what the agreement is. Must I be sent to the tiger's mouth? This is too difficult. I must be killed. Tang Heo actually asked you to go to Wuhandian Academy. Did he have a convulsion in his head? Douluo said another sentence suddenly. When Ji-Fei came back to his senses, he only found that Tang Heo was staring at him with a different emotion in his eyes. You are becoming more and more like that person, even though you have been recognized by the world in the mainland. Forgotten, but there are still people who know his secrets. The power of destruction is always like this. Everyone can get it. It's a pity. Ji-Fei touched his face subconsciously. Indeed, although he was often exposed to wind and sun, his skin was still delicate and fair, and his facial features were also very delicate. If he had such a face in his previous life, he would not have to think about it at all. Strength has eaten. Then think about it. Is he himself like his father, or like his mother? There should be more or less, right? Okay, get ready. Tomorrow morning we will set off for the place where you will hunt the soul beasts. Tang Heo walked into the inner room after finishing speaking. The remaining Ji-Fei fell down on the chair in one step, and he fell into deep thinking. What agreement? You need to send me to the enemy's Wuhandian Academy to study? It is obviously impossible. And what else is hiding from me? Wuhandian Academy. For a year there are really many things to learn, and an academy is the epitome of a small society. There must be powerful and unscrupulous guys looking for jobs, and it is an academy opened by a continental force like Wuhandian. There are perverts. Alas, it's so difficult. The thing I'm worst at is talking to people, and I'm really worried that this is a holdup for me. Send your adopted son to study in the enemy's academy. Why is this so bloody? Actually, you don't need to worry. It's only a year anyway. I'll be with you. Luo said, intentionally or unintentionally, with her legs drooping. Hey, the reason for this is really complicated. Don't think about it. Let's take a step. Are you going to hunt soul beasts tomorrow? I don't know what route my martial soul is suitable for. It doesn't look like that. Can you go? Control? Strong attack. It seems that strong attack is good. Are you talking about the sword that your martial soul spat out a while ago? Luo asked with some doubts. Fei smiled slightly. That's right. I really love the magical effect of the chaos martial soul more and more. Little Luo, do you know what that sword is? Luo said lightly. Kunwu. Oh, I can't hide anything from you. Fei shook his head helplessly. But you sure don't know the effect, right? Xiank. Luo also echoed Fei's words. In an instant, Fei was suffocated. End of this chapter. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.